inspiration. How are you?
About 60%. But we're back.
I wonder if we'll meet tomorrow.
It's only 60%.
Maybe we won't.
Don't let me forget it. Some pair of yours there. I figure.
Yeah.
Let's see
And
first.
you remind me
Yeah,
just to get
we'll get it. If we do that, it will both get lost shortly. I'm hiding. So then I put it in individual files. I was like, I might be able to find it easier that way.
I brought my home university my iPad with me, so if you have it,
I have
hard
it
copy,
here.
it's
We'll
better.
make an effort. But it was. It's like, okay, I have a general sense of what we're doing. But because I could, get a couple of signals go on that.
Well, no, it's
What
with you over there?
That's a plan, a real plan. But I used to literally 60%.
You're actually talking about you like 2 days ago.
So you're law enforcement in the
PA in this area?
Yeah, we tried to look
Yeah, it's in there, in a sense that.
And this petitioner wanted to do an online petition.
Most of my research is law enforcement involvement, so it makes it,
Okay, well, it's 1 o'clock, so I suppose we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the Texas Higher Education Coordinator. I really appreciate everybody who coordinating work, really appreciates you coming all this way. I know this is a very busy time of the semester, right? Things are getting started, and to ask you to take 2 days off of your teaching schedule and your administrative work is a burden. So I appreciate the sacrifices that you and your institution are both making to send you here. We wouldn't ask you to come here unless this was an extremely important activity. So I'm looking forward to hearing all of your opinions and thoughts as we put together a curriculum that really will go a long way towards shaping what's done in criminal justice at Texas colleges and universities for a long time to come. What I'd like to do is to first tell you that we're being broadcast on the web, on YouTube. The meeting will be archived on YouTube so that you can access it later or let your colleagues see what we were up to, or you can show your kids what you do for a living. For that reason, you've got little microphones around the tables which should be flashing green. If they're not flashing green, the microphones sometimes get a little flaky. If that happens, let me know. Or try pushing a little button at the bottom off and on until it comes back on. The microphones are all on all the time, which means that it can't distinguish between you whispering to your colleague over here and the person who's got the floor over here speaking. It's all going to come out equally, so I encourage you to to either listen carefully to what others are saying or be very judicious, I guess, in what you're whispering to your colleagues, because that can backfire. Also, speak up so that we can hear you. And so this is a noisy room because the air conditioning, coffee machine, loud acoustics, and everything else. So sometimes we get complaints that we can't hear each other. So speak up. Short of that, what I'd like to do to get started is first to go around the room and introduce ourselves to let each other know who we are and what we do, and perhaps what it is that you do at your institution, maybe how long you've been there. If you want to add a few words about what your institution does for creative justice, that'd be fine. Then after we do that, I'd like to appoint a recording secretary who can help us take notes and meetings of the meeting, minutes of the meeting. Take minutes for the meeting. That's not really a terribly onerous task, I hope. You don't have to record everything that everybody says, every word, or who said what, or who agreed. It's just make sure you have the exact wording of any motions that are made, very careful vote tallies. Make sure if there are major topics that are under discussion that are steering the conversation for a while to make note of, this is the topic that we discussed. Maybe make note of what some of the major opinions or ideas were. So as we go around the room, be thinking about that if you would be willing to serve. Particularly those of you who have laptops, that you might be at a real advantage here, so I appreciate you really do. Also, be thinking in the next few minutes if you would like to nominate yourself or be nominated to be one of the two co-chairs for the committee. We need two co-chairs. We need one person to represent the 2-year institutions and one person to represent the 4-year institutions. So be thinking of that too while we go around. And I'll begin. I'm Alan Mickey, Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. I don't have a little name tag, but I think I've got ones coming from upstairs in a few minutes. I bring all of my expertise in 18th century British literature to this committee. Actually, there's some really funky stuff going on in criminal justice in the 18th century. Real testing ground for all theories. Becker and Newgate and all that stuff, so I may pitch in. I've been working with Field of Study here for just recently, just in the last couple of months, and it's really been an adventure. So I'm really not fun to work. Can we begin here with Dr. Coleman?
Yeah. I'm Eric Coleman from the University of North Texas at Dallas. Our institution, we offer both the bachelor's and the master's degrees in criminal justice. I have actually worked in community colleges and at the university level, so I kind of understand this actually from both sides. I was working in a community college in the early 2000s when the field of study actually originated, so that we had some sort of even playing field between the universities and the community colleges. But I look forward to working with each of you and learning throughout this process. You're next.
Yes, I'm next. Dr. Linda Clark, I'm with Wharton County Junior College. I'm the department head for criminal justice. I also teach adjunct classes, upper division classes for the University of Houston downtown. We have 2 degrees, an AA in criminal justice and an AAS in law enforcement. The law enforcement degree plans includes the police academy.
All right, I'm Steve Wilson from the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. I was the chair of the department, but I was promoted to associate dean, so I do that. And while associate dean, our chair of literature decided to step down, so now I'm also chairing literature. Can you imagine? So I have both those responsibilities, and unfortunately, because I have 2 administrative jobs now, I no longer teach. But when I did teach, it was criminal justice, it was law enforcement statistics and research methods. Our department offers an online degree through the consortium. We offer a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in criminal justice.
Afternoon, Rob Tillier. I'm at the University of Texas at San Antonio. I'm an associate professor, also an associate dean in our college. Our department has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in criminology / criminal justice.
Afternoon. My name is Troy Thomas. I'm with Odessa College. I'm the department chair over the criminal justice program. Our particular criminal justice program offers 2 degrees, a regular criminal justice degree with an emphasis in law enforcement, and also a police leadership degree. Several certificates. We're looking at trying to build a crime scene investigation certificate that's a 25-hour track for practicing professionals. I've been with them for about 6 years now. Taught at the university for about 4 years as an adjunct while I was transitioning out of my job, retired from the police department.
I'm Dr. Megan Thone from Texas Tech University. I'm at the Institute for Forensic Science there, where I am part of the Master's in Forensic Science program. At Tech, at the bachelor's level, we have a sociology degree with a focus in criminology and a minor in forensic science, but no just straight up criminal justice degree.
My name is Joe Castillo, and I'm at Northwest Vista College. For those of you who don't know, that's in San Antonio, part of the Alamo Colleges district. I've been teaching at Northwest Vista for about almost 10 years now. I'm 9-10 years. Full-time, I think I went on full-time about 5 years ago. I am a retired practitioner. I was juvenile probation officer in Becker County in the 90s. I also worked in the private sector, and then I went back to work in the county with the Forensic Science Center, the crime lab and medical examiner, pretrial services and judicial services were part of my responsibility. So I come to this in retirement from as a practitioner, and I really enjoy teaching. Our students go to UTSA. Our students go to A&M San Antonio, Texas State. So we have a pretty good crop of students that we hope it's a good crop of students that we're sending out to you guys. Our interest, and we do provide a criminal justice degree. The SAC has, which is part of our system, has a police academy. So we do those things. Our institutions are supposed to be autonomous, although we're part of a system, which has been an issue. However, we do cooperate with our other fellow institutions. Basically, that's it. I'm here to learn. I think one of the things that frustrates us is when students go to a 4-year school. Some of our private schools just accept everything. Some of our state schools are a little bit more reluctant to accept our credits, and it depends on the school. And a lot of it depends on the student, too. So I think some students can sell themselves and sell their courses, too. But anyway, that's who I am, and I'm here to try to participate and learn from you guys.
I'm Dr. Christine Sellers. I am director of the School of Criminal Justice at Texas State University. I've been in that position for not quite 5 years. Our school offers the bachelor's, master's, and PhD in criminal justice.
I'm Claudia San Miguel from A&M International. I'm an associate professor and also dean of the College of Criminal Justice. So it was a pleasure to get out of the office just for a little bit. We have a BS in criminal justice and an MS in criminal justice, and the MS is completely online.
I'm Wendy Pollack. I'm an assistant professor, hopefully an associate professor in the fall, at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And we just have an undergraduate program there. We have about 400 majors that we work through. Prior to going there, though, I was at SFA, Stephen F. Austin, for 4 years. And at Stephen F. Austin, we did all of our student advising for 400 majors there. So I was a little bit more in touch with, how do these transfer? What are we not transferring? What are the struggles there when I was there? But I've been at A&M Corpus Christi for this is my 3rd year there, and I'm very grateful to not do advising anymore, but I'm happy to contribute to this meeting. Thank you.
I'm Beth Peltz. I've been with the University of Houston downtown for 30 years. 5 of those as chair of the Criminal Justice Department, 12 of those as the Dean of the College of Public Service, and I'm 2 years back into full-time teaching. We, over all those years, I've seen a lot of changes and had a lot of issues with transfer. So I was very happy to join this group and see that we are developing a new or updating the field of study in criminal justice. We have a BAAS in criminal justice, a BSCJ in criminal justice, and an MSCJ in criminal justice.
Great. My name is Patrick Patterson. I'm coordinator of criminal justice, Eastfield College in Mesquite, Texas. We have an abundance of programs. About heard from my colleagues here. We pretty much on the same track. We have 2 associate degrees. We have a AA field of study, which what we are here to be discussing, and we also have an AAS in criminal justice and public safety. We also have a 40-hour certificate in forensic science technician, and we also have a 20-hour certificate in digital forensics and private investigation. So beyond that, we do have basic certificates of criminal justice. So we try to stay on the cutting edge. We're the only school in the district with our own forensic lab. We also have a police academy. So I got my start in community college back in 1993 at the Mohawk Valley Community College in Utica, New York, part of the SUNY system. So from there, I moved around to various states, to private schools mostly, and wound up coming back to the community college in the Dallas County area, where I've been 13 years now. So I'm glad to be here, and hopefully we can do something with the FOS.
Dr. Jason Clark Miller, Northwest Campus of Tarrant County College. We have an associate's degree that we offer in criminal justice, and we do have an AAS. I didn't think about when we were talking about earlier, but the only people that do it are folks in the police academy. So I seldom ever interact with them on a routine basis. Came out of juvenile justice as well. After a few years of that, I decided it was time to go back to school and get a PhD, so that's how I wound up here.
Howdy, I'm James Blair down at South Texas College. 9th year teaching. This is my 3rd year as a program chair. I also get to oversee sociology, social work, and anthropology just because it'd be funny, I guess. So I've got to see how their programs interact with the transfer track as well. I've been heavily involved with transfer discussions. Our community college is heavily involved with dual credit programs, so I've had to look into how that interacts with everything. Our criminal justice, our AA criminal justice degree, we've got an AAS attached to our academy as well. Our AA degree has, I think we dipped down to 2,200 declared majors. We had a little bit of a dip because our economy picked up, jobs picked up, but we're the biggest degree plan that's not interdisciplinary. I call it the biggest real one. So I've had to look at this left, right, in and out, wanting to make this work for all of my students because we've got quite a few coming through. I'm also a juvenile person. I was with Texas Youth Commission until just about when it ceased to exist as such. So that was fun.
I'm Kyle May. I'm at Hill College. I'm a faculty and program coordinator for this program and a very, very small drug and alcohol abuse counseling program. We also have an AA degree. We have an AAS, and we've had a police academy in the past. I'm working to get that back, and we will have an AAS link to that as well once that's accomplished. If that's accomplished, hopefully when.
Celia Lowe, I chair the Department of Sociology and Social Work at Texas Women's University. But within our department, we have a criminal justice major, a BS degree, but it's jointly offered with government, but it's administered within sociology. It's kind of complex, but we do have a BS degree in criminal justice.
I'm Dustin Lewis. I'm an associate professor and the program co-chair of Howard College, the San Angelo campus. And we offer a level 1 certificate, 24 hours. We have an AS, we have AAS programs in criminal justice, general studies, law enforcement, and we have a partnership with an academy in San Angelo and a chemical dependency counseling program. I've been there for about 2 years. I saw the opening and I just took a shot. Didn't think I was going to get it. I've been very fortunate and I love what I do. Been there for about 2 years now.
Hi, Kent Curley, University of Texas at Arlington. I'm a professor and also chair in the Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice. This is my 3rd year as I've moved specifically for this position to Texas. We have a bachelor's degree program That's a traditional one with about 700 students, and then we also have a part in the University of Texas online consortium program with 2 other universities that is fully online, and then we have 3 different master's programs.
Hello, I'm Camille Gibson, Prairie View A&M University in the College of Juvenile Justice and Psychology. We have 4 degree programs, traditional criminal justice bachelor's degree, a bachelor's in criminal justice with a specialization in juvenile justice, a master's in juvenile justice that's online, and I believe still the only juvenile justice doctoral program in the state, maybe the country, we don't know. I've been at Prairie View for 18 years. Have experience as chair of the department. Well, we say department head where we are. And I'm delighted to be here.
I'm Richard Becker with Lone Star College. We are a system that has 6 different campuses, colleges. And Beth, it's good to hear you back with us again. Really glad to hear that. We have an Associate of Arts degree. We do not have any other one. We've had an AAS, but it's not effective at this point in time. I've been with Lone Star for 34 years and have been involved with criminal justice one way or another for 47 years. So I'm glad to be part of this. I've been with this field of study since it began and talking about it years before we even sat down with the coordinating board to do this. And so glad to be here with everybody else and meet everybody.
Hello, I'm Stephen Gass from Texas County College. I've been with the college since 2013 when I retired from a municipal agency. I'm over the criminal justice department, but that only consists of myself and 1 adjunct, so it's pretty small. But we do have an AA. I also serve as our institution's police chief for our Department of Public Safety. But we only offer an AA. Most of our students go to the A&M system, but I have one that just graduated from Prairie View and have them at UNT and Sam Houston, and also one fixed to come to Texas State. So this was just a great opportunity to really look at how we can make this field of study work best for the students. So.
I'm Kevin Fritz from Angelina College in Lufkin, Texas. I'm the program coordinator for our criminal justice program, and like you, I have 1 adjunct currently. Had as many as 4 in the recent past, but we've consolidated a few things. Currently have an AAS program, degree program and a certificate for the core curriculum, and we're looking to expand in the very near future to offer either an AA or AS to help our students out as well. And I've been there this is my 7th year, love doing what I do, and I still say it's the job. I love going to work on Monday morning, and hopefully I can contribute something here, and it's good to meet everybody as well.
Tamara Culver, I'm a professor, and my husband and I are over the criminal justice program at MCC, McLennan Community College. It's a fairly large program, about 600 students. More than half of our students go the AA field of study route. I've been there for 15 years, and I was actually program director by myself when we joined up with Tarleton State University, our university partner. So I was kind of in on it from the ground up, and that's why I wanted to come today and see what work I could contribute to. My background is law, still practice law. I was a prosecutor for over a decade and continue to do trial work. So that's sort of my practical academic combination.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. That's an impressive distribution here of different people at different levels, different fields, and with different responsibilities. I'm pleased to see we've got advisors here, we've got deans here, we've got department chairs, we've got instructors, we've got professors. This is great because there's really very few opportunities often where people at 4-year and 2-year institutions get to talk to each other, right? When they're in the same room together, where they get to talk about the same issue instead of maybe firing emails back and forth, and have this kind of cross-section from different regions of the state at different levels. So it's a great opportunity. So I'm glad to see this happen. One other thing that came up, I just noticed that when you were going around the room talking about what your departments do and your divisions do, there were a lot of different fields that you mentioned. police academy, juvenile justice, criminal justice, AAS degrees, certificate programs. I'm just saying this out loud so we don't forget that one thing I'd like for us to discuss before we leave is, can this field of study for criminal justice serve as the same field of study for different related degrees to criminal justice? Or are there some fields that are connected to your discipline that should have separate fields of study, that are far enough away from criminal justice that they really deserve to have another committee like this one need to come talk about it? So maybe that's something we can talk about. How about our recording secretary? Do we have any volunteers for someone who'd like to take notes during the meeting? We got all day. If someone would be willing to do it, but you don't have a laptop, I can get you a laptop.
I will surrender my university laptop to someone who wants to do it. Temporarily.
Camille volunteered.
Thank you, Camille.
I'll get you a computer in a little while, okay?
I have a laptop, but I don't have a cord. But I write faster. I'd rather write anyway.
Oh, really? Oh, well, excellent, okay. We can also get you an extension cord if you want one, it's easily done.
I'll write.
Okay.
I'd rather write.
Excellent. Oh, that's great. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Then our next order of business, the first motions and votes that Camille can write down for us is our election of our chair, of our two co-chairs. Do we have, first, for the two-year institutions, do we have any volunteers or someone who would like to nominate themselves to represent the two-year institutions to be one of our co-chairs? Let me tell you first what the co-chairs do.
Yeah.
I guess I should have said that from the beginning. I apologize. You're just leaping into a void here. The co-chairs will be the ones who really run the meeting. This meeting belongs to you. It's not the coordinating board's meeting. You're here to advise the coordinating board and to advise us of your recommendations, which we take to the board for their final approval. Coordinating board statute is written in such a way where these advisory committees are run by the advisory committee. So it will be the responsibility of the two co-chairs to direct the conversation of the meeting, to control the agenda, to call on people to speak, to keep us on track if we start veering off in a direction, to bring up the key issues to make sure they get discussed, and perhaps to shape and steer the conversation in a way that helps arrive at a consensus. If there's severe disagreement about something in here, if there's even votes on something, or if there's something really that we get into an argument about, hopefully the co-chairs can use their finesse to steer us towards a greater consensus, because we would like it if this committee could speak in a unified voice by the time we're all finished. There will also be a few paperwork things that the two co-chairs will do after the meeting's over. They'll help to finalize the final wording of the field of study. The two co-chairs will work with me to determine what we will do and how we will respond to the public comments that we get after the 30-day public comment period. I'll talk more about that later, to help decide whether or not this committee needs to come to Austin to meet in person again to talk about them, or if that can be done via teleconference or via email threads, things like that. The two co-chairs will also have 6-year terms on the 3-year terms. We have terms of 1, 2, and 3 years for this committee. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the co-chairs will have 3-year terms in case we need to come back again in the next 3 years to discuss these issues. The co-chairs will help arrange those. But 90% of the work will be done today and tomorrow through the co-chairs. Anybody would like to nominate themselves from the 2-year institutions first? Patrick Patterson. Second the nomination, anybody?
I'll second.
Okay, any others?
I'd nominate Richard Becker.
Richard Becker. Okay. Where is Richard? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see. Okay. Is that okay with you, Richard, to be nominated? Okay. Would you like to second your nomination?
Sure.
Any others from the 2-year institutions? Okay, we need to have a vote. First, would you like to, Patrick or Richard, say anything before we vote?
Go ahead, Patrick.
Richard does have me on years. Okay. Which is true. Like I said, I got my first start in the SUNY system in New York in 1993. It's my first job as an instructor of criminal justice at Mohawk Valley Community College. From there, I've written, I think, about 15 proposals in all, given for various institutions and colleges: Lane College, Jackson, Tennessee, Jarvis Christian College in Hawkins, Texas, and Texas College in Tyler. So I've written the 3 proposals that we have that I mentioned earlier. So and I like to stay on the cutting edge of what the need is for the students, and that is always my mission: that the students first, and what the need is. And society is forever changing, and I do believe that we must be on the cutting edge of that if we want to make sure that our students are job ready and prepared. So we can't be behind. Whatever the trend is, whatever changes, our students must be prepared. Years ago, it was forensic science, it still is, but now it's digital, now it's cyber. And we do have a digital forensics and private investigation program. So our PR program is one of the first in the state, or the second, I think, behind UNT, to where if a student gets our 20-hour certificate along with their associate degree, they can sit for the state license exam here in Austin without having the 3 years of experience to being a PI. It was approved by the board 3 years ago.
Well, we all have the same dreams and goals, so it's it's kind of it's just a hit and miss. But I have been, like many of y'all, involved with this for many years, and one of our major concerns many years ago, and still is today, I've heard from some people coming in, is the relationship between the 2-year and the 4-year institutions and understanding this transfer of courses, because we get hit really hard at the community college level. You've got so many hours, you've got this 15-hour criminal justice field of study, and we're discovering since we first created the 15-hour that not all of them are sliding as well as they did for a few years, and so we need to find out which courses are going to fit best, which courses are going to cause the least amount of consternation in moving from community college to the 4-year universities and colleges. And it differs from regions in the state, and it just differs from all the curriculum that we have on it. And that is one of my main concerns. And looking at our AASs and how do we fill those, and the degree certificates that we've got along those lines. And so I've been doing it for a while, and try to keep my finger in the pie as we go along. And but the concern for how can we get the most for the students, which is what everybody's got. And we're coming also from, and I'm sure some of the 4-year universities, from the high schools, and that's a big concern. The quality of what's done in the high schools for the universities. And, because we want to make that we want it to be as fluid as it can be without any great concern or what in the world is going on down there kind of focus, from the 4-year levels.
I have a question for each of the candidates. Does either of you have any experience with the core curriculum committee or instructional councils at your respective colleges?
Yes, yes, I do. I'm also curriculum chair for the Criminal Justice Committee at our school. So when it comes down to pathways, that's collegiate academies, dealing with when the core curriculum changes, we are the first to be notified to what may impact our students with the AAFOS. And there are some issues of concern that I do have. I know on here I did the check sheet that I've gone to battle with a few things in dealing with the core, but nothing nefarious as the main core. But my concern is this EDUC, which you may have heard of. It's not here, but the PSYC learning framework has been an issue in the core curriculum. that we've been dealing with. But it's been EDUC mainly, not the psychology part. But at this point, they have left the FOS alone as far as implementing the EDUC 1300 inside of that, because I brought on some legalities that may affect the students and the college if they was to try to implement that into the FOS, or to try to say the student must take that course regardless, even if they are getting the FOS, but it's outside of the FOS. And now you're having a student take a course that is not part of the degree plan, which is the initial contract between the student and the state, actually. So you're taking the student's money for a course they don't even need to complete a degree. And now we have a problem because you're talking about fraud, legalities. You talk about a big thing if you say a student cannot graduate by taking a course that is not in the main curriculum, besides developmental, that is. So.
Thank you.
I think Patrick and I were twins separated at birth. Yeah, I am the chair of the criminal justice curriculum for the system, and have been for many years. Have been involved with the core courses in the sense of how can we make some of our criminal justice courses part of the core course, some electives that are available there, and just the headaches and the process that you've got to go to ensure that gets done. And I mean, we've got six different campuses that we're sitting and working with, and I've chaired that for many years, chaired criminal justice forever and a day.
Thank you.
Well, let's have a vote if we can. All in favor of Patrick? Sorry?
Can we do this by secret ballot as opposed to show of hands?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes. If you could,
People just write down.
well, I tell you what. You're going to draw one from an envelope, and each one of these things has a little term limit on it of 1, 2, or 3-year terms. We randomly assign to a 1, 2, or 3-year term for service on this committee. It's not really very likely, I don't think, that the committee will reconvene in 2 years. We might reconvene in 3 years. We're definitely going to reconvene in 5 years, or shortly around 5 years. In which case you might not be on the committee at all unless you decide to run again and be reappointed by your provost or chief academic officer. In which case you're welcome back on the committee. But what I'd like for you to do is to pick a piece of paper here that will have your term. Write your name on the term so that I can know what it is. And then, since we're going to do a secret ballot anyway, on the back of the little slip of paper, if you would write your vote, okay? For either Patterson or Becker.
I guess there's a whole bunch of
Does everybody vote for both chairs?
Yes, this is why I suppose we should go ahead and also see if we are going to have more than one person who would like to represent 4 year institutions. In which
Yeah, that
case
would be easier than only
also
one vote.
that on the list.
Yeah, that would be.
Are there already lists of paper going around? How about that?
This'll work.
Be confused because if we wrote our name down and then a candidate,
Oh, okay,
it
so
could
somebody's
be.
way ahead.
It would not be
Especially if
secret.
they're running and they're getting a
Right.
term. So it might be cleaner to keep it separated.
Okay. So in other words, the person explaining how to do it should shut up while the people who are actually doing it are.
We can get through, yeah.
Lesson learned.
say, I have
Okay.
another
So
something we can
Thank you. Richard wrote you a little piece of paper.
So we're just gonna do 2
We might write their
years.
names up there just so we get the right spelling. Yeah.
It's nice that we have names out so we can see how to spell it. We're gonna hold on to them until we see about the
All right. Well, then you're gonna have to give it
4 year.
No, this is just for 2 years.
Okay. I don't wanna overcomplicate it.
Everybody got a piece
That's
of
fine.
paper?
Got it.
So we're going to go ahead and complete the vote for this one, and then
Yeah, that's, I think, happening.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
there you go.
Just curious.
You think you're the best candidate, you should vote for yourself.
Thanks.
I'm just trying to move it along.
It's,
Go ahead and hang on to my other piece of
Yeah.
Between us all, we have.
Here, I'll give you.
No, you know what, I have these dividers, I'm not using, you can just break one up.
Better.
So,
Or I would have said.
4 years.
Oh, okay.
Let's do it.
Going down that path.
Thought at some point I was gonna get super
You
motivated.
submitted
Yeah, look
it.
at that.
Yep.
Free one.
Camille's got ours.
Yeah.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Well, you have, I think that's where it's great. So the purpose of the field of study is so that you don't have to have all these agreements from all schools. So that for the purpose of field of study, then your university will take it.
So anyway, we've got that, we can break it up. I've got more, I've got like
These were
15
Southern
minutes.
Election, me too.
Yeah, we'll see if this other one requires a runoff.
I don't know all the Eastville's in Dallas.
Okay, congratulations, Dr. Becker, who will be one of our co-chairs, and thank you, Patrick, for being willing to.
Richard got that one.
All right, let's do the same thing also for our four-year institutions. If you could let me know if you would like to nominate yourself to be our co-chair representing the four-year universities. Nominations?
Yeah, thank you.
What do you think, Claudia?
I don't mind throwing my hat in the ring.
I second it.
By acclamation.
I will save any political speeches. Maybe I can just keep us moving and my commitment to work with the Higher Education Coordinating Board, making myself available as needed and to you. That's my speech. And I am on the curriculum board or committee at UNT, so yeah.
You know I was
spirit's
gonna
there. Yeah.
There we go.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Dr. Sellers.
Dr. Sellers, is that all right with you?
I have no qualifications for this position. I have not been on a curriculum committee, and I really would not feel comfortable leading a discussion, so. But thank you.
Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor of Dr. Coleman? All opposed? Okay, well, congratulations.
Now the work begins, huh?
That's right.
You did.
Now, I know we've only been here for 40 minutes, but it's time to take a break because I would like to adjourn for a few minutes to speak to our two co-chairs off to the side to kind of give them some thoughts about the meeting and some of their responsibilities and duties. And then I'll turn it over to them to run the rest of the meeting. So we have some coffee and water and cookies here, and if we could adjourn for 10 minutes and we'll reconvene at 10 minutes to 2. Okay?
was my early career.
A year
And
also.
they can bring in the credit for evaluation, they can bring in their license, and we'll give them, we give them 22 hours for their 60
Yeah, we give them some.
But we require them to take
I like
5 academic CJ classes, we require, whatever,
They,
15 hours.
at our school, they take 2
Get into his stuff, and he's good. He's
still
really
backup
Yeah, I can do that. He's like, don't forget to pay that
classes. If you pass
$400.
these 2, we'll give you
Okay.
23 more
That's
credits, and then knock out your English history, and behold, you're doing that.
On our regular ACGM courses.
It was largely.
And there are certificates, so they are, for those 10 courses that are TSI exempt.
I like that as well.
They're ACGM courses, so the credentialing is still the same requirement. But the TSI, just those 10 classes, that's our internal.
And now that we use them as tablets, more than we use them as, I don't use mine. I bet I make less than 10 phone calls a month.
Because it was kind of growing.
Yeah, and 1,000 students.
So they're just academy instructors?
They're academy
You can do on the fly now, or I need direction,
I
or
don't know why anybody
whatever.
does that. If you don't have a,
1,000 other little.
but other classes, they, I knew I was, I don't want to call out anybody by name, I can't remember for sure if it's racing.
And a lot of
They used to do the processing, where they would offer
police officers that
sections of training.
I went through Central Texas College.
I didn't.
And
Chilly for me.
Yeah, I didn't check
yeah,
it.
did or something, but I mean,
And, but luckily, like I said, I'm in
But I did an
business.
AA.
I brought
I mean,
it.
if you do that, you have to have the credentials for the HCM class, the 1301, but they also listed it as the Wickham version.
when they did that,
And I don't know why, because they would be on the AAS.
And it's probably according to my
They
car,
didn't want to transfer
temperature age,
when they
probably
realized
10
they took the
degrees
same
cooler
class
here
in
in
the
San
same
Antonio. I mean,
instructor.
cooler here in San
They want to
Antonio.
transfer now.
It's just dropped
they
in.
were doing
I agree, it's cool for me. This is a little bit chilly. I'm not a cold weather.
If you signed up for the
Born and
class to
raised
get
in
the
Texas,
credit,
this is good.
you got equal hours.
I was born and raised in San Antonio, very close to you guys. I was over, like
But you
Sarah
are, I
Avenue,
mean,
that's where I grew up.
if you wanted, if I wanted to come in out of high school and get a 2-year degree, but I had no desire to transfer,
Don't hold on to them too long.
could I do your AAS without going, I don't want to be in the police
It dawned
academy.
on me,
I just
I
want to
was
get 2 hours,
there.
2 years.
That's the way I like
Yeah.
I was one of the leaders that took it.
Yeah.
Even warmer than us.
Well,
Well, we were in the 70s yesterday, right?
like 50
Yeah.
Their advisors didn't know the difference
Nice.
between criminal justice and law enforcement.
So I didn't put my name on it, give it back to you?
We've got a couple.
So is that, so
I can't get outside then. You have to wait till at least 8 p.m. So you don't die while barbecuing.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable. But they
Wanna try it?
they would only give out like 4. Short termer unless somebody wants to sell. eBay these things? I'll change my name.
Very well played. Very well played.
Oh, gotcha. I'm in the middle here. I'm probably in the good. Oh, look at you. I'm a 2.
He was trying to hang on.
I'm optimistic that we can.
It's fabulous. We talked to, we had the coworker that came to the psychology field of study meeting. They started theirs was like Friday during the first week of school.
We've got a division level curriculum, and that's when we decided to start before we take it to college. Yeah, most of the time these meetings work fairly well. Like I said, there was the one a couple years back in biology, where we were all about anthrax. That got interesting quick.
You're the 10.
I texted my wife, like, well, I'm about anthrax.
Yeah.
Even after you retire, you're
Nobody's
committed
paying
to
attention
this.
to them.
Yeah, you can always.
I've had a couple of instances and when people ask questions, but
Yeah, we've had that come up, and most of the time it's just we rubber stamp just to, all right, we got a vote, so we said we could vote, so we voted.
Okay, if you would please write your name on the little slip of paper for the terms, and if you would put that back in the envelope, please pass that around. What comes back around this way. Thank you. What I would like to do is to give you all an overview
Plane ticket
of
in
what
the
the
next 3
field of
years.
study
Your
is,
school paid for it.
what the field of study is not, and what some of the responsibilities are going to be of this committee and how it fits into a broader picture of what the coordinating board's up to. Have at your table a copy of the brochure for 60 by 30 Texas. This is the coordinating board's overall achievement plan for higher education in Texas. I really commend it to your attention. I would really love it if you could take a careful look at it when you get back, because it really explains a lot of what it is that we're doing here at the Higher Education Coordinating Board and where it is we see Texas going, especially by the year 2030. There are four main goals of 60 by 30. One is to have 60% of all Texans aged 25 to 34 have a college degree by the year 2030. The second goal is to have 550,000 students complete a degree or certificate in the year 2030. Third is to have all students graduate with identifiable marketable skills. And the fourth is to have undergraduate student debt not exceed 60% of their first year wages by the year 2030. Now, what the field of study we're hoping will do to contribute toward the 60 by 30 goals is to help with the educated population goal and the completion goal and the debt goal. I'd like to say something just about the debt goal, because there's a real difference in Texas between what's going on with native students. By native, I mean those who began at a four-year institution as freshmen, and the transfer students. We're hoping to close some of that achievement gap between native and transfer students. For example, this is a bit from a statistic in a report from the coordinating board that I came across recently. I'd just like to show it to you because I think it's really striking. Of Texas public universities here, this is the time to degree rates for native and transfer students. Okay. Total number of graduates, the total graduates here for natives, the total graduates here for transfers. As you go down, you can see the individual institutions, but look at the final number down. For native students, it's taking them 5.4 years to graduate on average with a baccalaureate degree in 10 semesters. Which is not great, but it's, there's room for improvement even there with native students. But here's the situation for transfer students. It's taking them almost 8 semesters to graduate, 7.7 semesters. No, I'm sorry, 7.7 years and 11.3 semesters to graduate. So our native students are taking 10 semesters to graduate, our transfer students are taking 11.3 semesters to graduate. But they're taking longer time to do it. See, the difference is not that great between the number of semesters, but it's taking them extra time. So students are losing time that they could be in the workforce. They're going presumably into more debt because they're taking longer in their university careers. So field of study is one way, among others, that the coordinating board is trying to address this issue. It's part of a portfolio of solutions that we've got going on. We're encouraging degree planning and advising. It's required of all students when they accumulate 30 semester credit hours. It means they're moving towards selecting a major. We want to make sure they get good advice about what that degree plan is. We have a 42-hour core curriculum that's required of all students. We have programs of study, which is not the same thing as fields of study. It's easy to get the terms mixed up. But programs of study are for workforce education what field of study is for academic education. When we have meetings such as this one for programs of study, we have community colleges, we have universities, but we also have people from the workforce and from industry. And we also have people from high schools to come together to talk about what are the degree plans for technical education that are guaranteed to transfer from high school to college to university and or workforce in a seamless pipeline. We have an academic course guide manual, which we keep referring to as the ACGM, which is the catalog, as of course all our two-year schools know, the catalog of courses that can be taught at two-year institutions that are guaranteed to be funded by the state. And all those courses are guaranteed to transfer two institutions. We have the Common Course Numbering System as well, which we hope will help ease transfer. The point of trying to ease transfer is to help students not take extra semester credit hours. Because the more extra semester credit hours they take, the more in debt they're going to go, the longer it's going to take them to complete that degree. Every course in the ACGM, and therefore pretty much every course taught at a two-year institution, is guaranteed to transfer. But it's not guaranteed to count towards a degree plan. So what the field of study is trying to do, and programs of study as well, is to try to help close that gap between the native and transfer students by making sure that the courses that students do take as at the lower division in their first 2 years, either at a university or a college, will apply towards a degree. We would like to see many more students graduating in 4 years or 4.5 years rather than 7 years or 11 years. I mean, 5 years or 7 years or 11 semesters. Here's what a field of study is, okay? A field of study, this is from the Texas Education Committee. If a student successfully completes a field of study curriculum developed by the board, that block of courses may be transferred to a general academic institution and must be substituted for that institution's lower division requirements for the degree program for the field of study into which the student transfers, and the student shall receive full academic credit towards the degree program for the block of courses transferred. So in other words, if a student has taken the lower division level requirements for criminal justice at a Texas public institution, they have taken the lower division requirements for criminal justice at every Texas public institution. And what those courses are is what you guys will decide on today and tomorrow. They must be accepted towards the degree. Okay. If the student completes only part of the field of study, then they get credit for the part that they did take. Also, each institution must note the field of study courses on the student's transcripts so that the receiving institution will know for sure which courses to apply to that degree plan when they've been working on the field of study. In committees like this, for every field of study, there is a committee of faculty and administrators who decide on it. This is not the coordinating board deciding from on high what these fields of studies are. We are drawing together committees drawn evenly from 2-year and 4-year institutions to help us make these recommendations. I'd like to introduce our Assistant Commissioner for Academic Quality of Workforce, Rex Beatles. And if you don't mind, I would like to have you talk about the legislative history of this, because Rex has had the good fortune of attending many legislative subcommittee hearings on higher education when they've talked about transfer issues, and he can tell you a little bit more about how all this came to be.
So at the very beginning of the last legislative session, I was testifying to the Finance Committee, the Senate Finance Committee, actually about different things. And one of the things that I talked a little bit about was the fields of study work that we were engaged in, and that just sort of opened the floodgates to a long. I'm trying to figure out how, this is being broadcast, so I'm trying to be different.
Diatribe.
A long discussion of we've been working on this for 20 years and why it hasn't been fixed yet, kind of thing. Because what legislators hear about is the student who transferred from a college in the Valley with 75 hours of work and went to A&M to major in engineering and was told that about 24 hours of that would actually work toward an engineering degree, when they had been told by somebody else that all of it would work. And that's a part of that old message that all of us have been delivering for a long time, and that is, I'll just take it, it'll transfer. Right? And as long as you pass the course with an A, B, or C, it will transfer. But as years ago, I co-chaired the Academic Course Guide Manual Committee, and my co-chair, Jean Shockey from University of North Texas, I don't know if any of you know her, but she made the remark that everything transfers, but not everything applies. And so that really got me, and this was 15, I don't know, maybe longer than that, years ago. It was a while back. And that really got me to think about this whole issue of transfer versus application and what students are losing. And obviously the legislature's been thinking about this for a long time. FOS legislation actually goes back to the early 2000s, I think. And for those of you who know, there is a field of study in place for criminal justice. It has been for, I don't know, 12 or 13, 14 years now or something like that. And under the statute, that field of study is still, a student who takes it still can take it to a 4-year institution, and it must be used toward that student's degree. So part of the reason why you guys are here is because we know that that may be very well out of date after this length of time. And criminal justice is one of the top 25 transfer degrees. So the legislature got very interested in this whole issue, and I spent about 30 to 45 minutes in front of the Finance Committee trying to explain field of study work and trying to explain why core curriculum was less than what they thought it was as a transfer device, a whole lot less than what they thought it was as a transfer device. And then I got to expand on that theme a couple of more times during the course of the legislative session, and out of that came some legislation that was unanimously passed in the Senate, but did not get out of the House of Representatives, that dealt with things like the top 25 majors and that kind of stuff, and reinforced the whole idea of using the core curriculum as a transfer mechanism of some sort, and more than just a list of courses that students should take. But it also reiterated the use of the FOS, and so we sort of got ourselves in a position of trying to make the promise that we would have the top 25 done by the next legislative session. And we're sort of on track to do that, I think. If y'all work quickly, that'll help. I'll just throw that in as a little bit of encouragement there. What we did was we looked at students who graduated from a 4-year institution, and we backed up on those, and we looked at students who transferred from a community college to a 4-year institution, and we looked at what they declared as a major at the community college, and then we looked at what they declared as a major when they entered the 4-year institution, and then we looked at what they actually graduated with as a major. And it turns out, oddly enough, that the list of the top 25 in those categories, they're all virtually identical. And what you'll see is every once in a while, number 5 on one list will be number 6 in another list, but there's very little difference between the 3 lists, which tells me that there's, must be an issue problem. So it tells me that our old reliance on dismissing transfer problems as simply being one of, well, the students change majors all the time. It doesn't appear to be that that doesn't happen near as often as we seem to think it does, perhaps. And we're trying to dig into that some more and try to get a better handle on, well, just how often do students change majors. But at least for that group, we know they don't. What we don't know very much about is all the students who didn't graduate. And what we know is at the 4-year level, there's about almost half of them don't ever graduate. And we also know, too, that the issue of transfer, it's complicated. It's not just a 2 to 4 year. Sometimes it's a 4-year to a 2-year, and then back to a 4-year, or any possible combination thereof. And one of the things we also know is that if you look at the data between 2 and 4 and 4 to 4 transfer, actually appears to be even more problematic, or actually a little bit more problematic than transfer from 2 to 4 is. So, and part of what the legislature asked me at the beginning of this session was, so we've been working on this transfer thing for 20 years and it still hadn't been solved, and so what's the problem here? Now, you know, they like fast and easy solutions. There really isn't one, but they like them anyway, and they really want to know what the problem is. And so I said, well, you know, fundamentally, your problem in Texas is that we actually have 60 systems, which we do. We have 50 community colleges. They're all systems unto themselves. We have 6 university systems. We have 4 independent universities. So we have a minimum of 60 systems. And actually, if you include TSTC in that, then you can actually make the claim it's 61 systems all right? And even our systems don't act like systems very much, okay? And so what you have is you have this culture that's been created over the last 100 years of everybody gets to do whatever they want to do. And that's what they've done. And I have no doubt that, my experience in institutions has told me that every institution acts in its own self-interest. And oftentimes that self-interest also includes what they think is best for students. But it's all done in the context of that institution, or even sometimes more so, it's done in the context of that department. And so we have created a culture where everybody operates in silos. And we have a bunch of them. Right? There's about 150 majors in this state. I don't know for sure just how many there are, but I once counted up how many UT Austin offered and how many A&M College Station offered. And one of them was 133 and the other one was 132. And I tried not to double count where you could get a BA or a BS in the same discipline. I just tried to count that as one discipline. There were 133, 132. And while there's not some overlap between the two institutions, there's also a lot of differences as well. For example, UT Austin has no agricultural degrees. A&M College Station has a lot of them. So there's some overlap, but there's differences. That's where I get my 150 number from, and that may be a conservative estimate. On the other hand, the top 25 transfer will capture about 60 to 65% of all your transfer students. So what we know is that there's a lot of popular majors, and at some point you start working your way down the list, and there's only one, maybe two colleges out there that even offer that major at all. So there are some things that only UT Austin offers. They're the only one in the state that offers it. There are some things that College Station only offers as well. So the transfer issue has become a big issue. There are interim charges for the Senate that requires them, the Senate Higher Education Committee, to take a look again at transfer and how it functions and how it doesn't function. One of the reasons I mentioned the 60 systems is because somebody on another committee the other day, so I know her, and I know that she came from Kansas. And I pointed out that in Kansas you don't have this problem because Kansas has one system. And Kansas did, at a system level, what y'all are doing and did it for everybody. But in Kansas, everybody belongs to the same system. All the community colleges, all the four-year schools are all in one system. And so they did all this internally, so to speak, and no one thought too much about it. But when you try to do it in a culture like Texas, it's very, very different. So it's difficult work because, somebody may have to change something. And nobody ever wants to change anything. In spite of all of the popular press claiming that higher education is the liberal bastion of communist everywhere kind of thing, the reality is that higher education is without a doubt one of the most conservative institutions that history has ever created. And when I say conservative, I mean in the sense of wanting to maintain the status quo and not change anything. Sometimes there's very good reason for that, by the way. I would never make the argument that you ought to change something just to be changing it. You ought to change it for good reason. And I think that trying to serve students better is a really good reason for that. And what we know is that students, even among the courses that they pass, they generally lose about 15 to 16 hours when they transfer from a 2 to a 4-year, and about 17 when they transfer from a 4-year to a 4-year. If you count up their D's, F's, and W's, then that number goes up quite a bit. It's around 140 to 145 total, and that's on average. And that's students who complete, by the way. And again, we don't really know what the impact of this is on students who don't complete, who give up, run out of financial aid, run out of time, whatever the case may be. So again, we're actually trying to dig into that more and try to get more information about it. But I think from the standpoint of serving students and trying to do what's best for them, and in your particular discipline, trying to identify what is it that students who want to major in criminal justice really ought to know. What's that foundation of knowledge that they need to take with them when they get to upper division or graduate school, and then start into all of the nuances of that. you know, I've always been struck by higher education's quest to know more and more about less and less in some ways. I mean, and that's what particularly graduate education does that to you. I mean, you all know that. I mean, it happened to me too. So I'm a political scientist by training. All of my degrees are in political science. But, you know, when I worked on my PhD, I mean, I narrowed that sucker down to 3 fields. And only one of them was just sort of just take a couple of courses and you're fine. And really narrowed it down to 2 fields. And all of them work that way in some respect or another. But everybody has to start somewhere. And so part of this is what is that lower division set of courses that really provide the foundation for criminal justice. That's one way to think about this. We usually use the ACGM courses as a place to start, but those things can be modified or revised, added to, or deleted. And that's a part of what this committee is also here to do, is to think about if there's something there that if there's something people ought to know and it's not there, then let's put it in there. And if there's stuff there that has become outdated and is no longer useful to the discipline, then let's get rid of it, kind of thing. So, and you're the subject matter experts. I'm not, I could probably do this for political science, but I couldn't do it for criminal justice or any of those other 149 fields out there. And so that's why we need you to really tell us what it is that students at that level ought to know and what they ought to be able to take with them when they transfer and move on in their chosen field. So I'll leave it at that. I'll just back over to Alan and let y'all get down to work. And I'll be around, so if y'all have any questions or anything that I can answer or try to help you with, just give me a holler. You know how to find me. So.
Thank you very, very, very much.
One other thing, I know that this is, the great state of Texas is also cheap. Alan said that. I said that. So the great state of Texas is cheap, as you know, so we don't pay for any of your expenses associated with being here. And so, but I want to thank you for giving up your time and your expertise to this endeavor. I have come to believe that this really is important work for students in the long run, and that's who we're here to serve. And so I really do appreciate your time and expertise that you're going to devote to this. And you don't get much from us, but thanks. And so I will go ahead and tell you thank you, because I really do appreciate you being here. Just in case I don't get to tell you that before you go.
Alexis' comment about universities being fundamentally conservative reminds me of that old bad joke of how many full professors does it take to change a light bulb?
Takes 27 committees.
That's right.
And a planning committee.
Thank you, Rex. Here at the field of study, as Rex says, we're going to try to complete the top 25 transfer majors before the next legislative session starts. Here's the ones we've already completed. Here are the ones that we are working on currently. We've got a few more coming up. We just finished a few others. And here's how committees like this work. As I said, you represent institutions from all across the state. If there are fewer than 12 universities with a major in that discipline, then we'll still have an equal number of 2- and 4-year representatives on the committees. As we discussed, these are archived on the web. What our job here today is to review the curricula from programs at representative institutions. I sent you an attachment a while ago that has some curricula for criminal justice at a selection of universities, including the ones that receive the highest number of transfer students. We can review the approved courses of the ACGM. We can consider courses that need to be added to the ACGM if necessary. We can adjust their objectives and descriptions if an existing course needs a little tinkering based on updated information. And our job is to decide on which lower division courses are absolutely necessary for success in upper division courses in a major. We want to try to find that sweet spot between not requiring so many courses in the field of study that we're restricting student choice, we're restricting the freedom of the two-year institutions to create AAS degrees that they believe are in the best interest of their students in their region. On the other hand, we don't want to require too few field study courses that we're creating a knowledge gap between the native and the transfer students. What our question should really be is, what is the information that every student coming from the lower division needs to know in order to succeed as a criminal justice major? And we can start from there. What's in the best interest of the students? I want to give you just some sample fields of study of what some of these look like. This is a pretty straightforward and simple one. Okay, this is Mexican American Studies, which was done not too long ago. All the courses are drawn from existing courses in the ACGM. All of the courses, except for Spanish, have Mexican American in the title. I mean, it's, a straight down the line. It's almost all of the courses in the ACGM that relate to Mexican American studies. It's not a terribly big field of study. How many hours is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18 hours. Okay. Now here's a more complicated field of study. This is civil engineering. 39 hours in the field of study. Right? Keep in mind that an entire associate degree is 60 hours. The core is 42 hours. So this is a field of study that cannot be completed alongside the core in just 2 years. Now let me tell you first, that's okay, because there's two things to get around that. One is if a student completes a field of study, they can still graduate with an associate degree without having a complete core. Also, some of these courses can count towards the core curriculum. So courses can double dip. So really, it's possible that a student can graduate with a completed field of study and the core and have the same course count twice for check 2 different boxes. But you'll notice that this is an example of a field of study that goes pretty far outside of the core field. I mean, there are 4 engineering courses, but the rest are all from different disciplines. And you can do that as well. You're not limited to just the criminal justice courses in the ACGM for our field of study. You could draw on psychology, you could draw on sociology, you could draw on criminology, you could draw on biology, draw on math, draw on politics. Okay. The field of study can consist of whatever is in the academic course guide manual that you think is appropriate. Or again, we can add to it if there's something missing. So this is a more complicated one.
So what you're saying, in the workforce degrees, the social applied sciences, that we can come up, like we got this 39, but they still have their 42-hour core requirement, correct?
Right.
So a student could complete 39 hours, and then they've got, 21 more hours. So any of the 7 more courses in the core requirement, which is generally believed you've got to do the core in order to get your degree. But if they finish this, they can graduate with an associate's degree in civil engineering.
That's right.
But they're going to have to make up those core courses at the 4-year university.
That's right. That's a little known rule. It's not kind of widely known or appreciated that if a student graduates with a field of study, it's okay for them to get an associate's degree without having a complete core. I think that's the only time you can graduate without a complete core.
Would it be an associate of applied science degree or an art or science degree?
Either one.
Interesting. So even though they're not core complete,
right,
they can still graduate with a 2-year associate.
That's right. If they've completed the board-approved field of study. So you guys have a lot of authority here today. And finally, a field of study isn't effective if it isn't used. There we go. Please understand that 4-year institutions are not required to use the same field of study courses for their lower division requirements. We are not forcing every university to say these are now our lower division requirements. What we are saying is that you are required to accept them for transfer as for credit towards the degree plan. Now, if they don't use the same courses in the field of study for their lower division requirements, they're going to be creating headaches for themselves. And over time, we hope that as catalogs get revised and as faculty as faculty have meetings to talk about these things, that eventually the lower division curricula for four-year institutions across the state will become more uniform for the benefit of transferring native students to close the knowledge gap and achievement gap between them. Because otherwise, your transfer students will be graduating from your programs at universities with a slightly different knowledge set than your native students. And that's acceptable, but not ideal. Okay. If a student completes a course that's in the field of study, but a university does not offer that course, okay, or does not require it, then the university has a couple of options. One, they can take the course that is most similar to it from their curriculum and give students credit for that. Okay. Or they can give the student credit as an elective. Either way, they have to give the student credit for the course that was in the field of study. And it has to apply to the degree program. Okay.
But if they give credit as only an elective, then the university can require them to take anywhere from 2 to 4 additional courses in order to complete the degree requirements from the four-year institution.
You can't add, if you...
Because that's what we're seeing now. That's the reality now.
We gotta fix that, yeah. Your university isn't supposed to be adding to the number of semester credit hours because they're not offering a course that's in a field of study. That's really unfair to students. You're making your transfer students take more hours than your native students to get the same degree. Right? And so we're very much trying to iron that out. Does that make sense? I know this is kind of getting into the weeds here. We've got more time to air these things out.
transfer
I
as
just want to get you an overview of
then the students don't
what's
get
at stake here and how it's going to work.
choices.
So please keep my name and address and phone number in your files, and I'll be happy to work with your institutions and your peer institutions as time goes by to help iron out these issues. One of your jobs here, related job as a member of this committee, is to hopefully be an ambassador for the field of study to your colleagues, the schools that are in your system, the schools that are in your district, to be their point person, their contact person perhaps, to help them make the transition to adjusting their lower division requirements in the degree plan to match the field of study, and to perhaps encourage them as they revise their catalogs to think about how these field of study courses can be widely adopted into their curriculum. And also to offer more sections of these courses, because the courses that we vote on today and tomorrow will see big jumps in enrollment, right? There might be more faculty hiring going on as a result of what you decide today. There might be people who teach less in different courses as courses fall in popularity at two-year colleges because they're not part of the final field of study. So your job might be to help, for your system and your partner and peer institutions to help make this process as seamless as possible. Okay. Any general questions now about how the field of study works?
I just have one. Once this is finalized and complete, what is the anticipated implementation date or year for these changes?
Well, when we're finished here, the courses will go out for a 30-day public comment period. And then after that, we'll see the nature and the number of the comments we get. And depending on that, we'll decide if this committee needs to come back to talk about them or if we can talk about them in a phone conference or something. Once we finalize the field of study, then it will go to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. See, this is February. Got April, or we'll make the April meeting, March-April meeting. So that would be June, July. It will go to the June Committee on Academic and Workforce Success and the full meeting of the July board, where they would approve the final field of study. And since that's July, there's time to implement it in September, so this could start next fall at the earliest. Any other questions?
Explain to me again, going back to what you put up before, Mr. Mitchie, the 39 hours with that engineering program. Can you kind of clarify that? I got a little hazy on that one. You said that was 39 hours. That was going toward. That was was that a field of study program with those 39 hours of engineering courses?
That's right.
Okay, so, and you're saying a student could take that and they can get an associate degree, receive an associate degree, without dealing with the rest of the core that's putting in. So
completing the course.
you're right, without
The
without
Common
completing,
Core.
right, the Common Core. Get that. So, okay.
They'd have to take the rest of the core eventually.
Eventually, right,
Graduate
but
with a
at
baccalaureate.
the community college level, they can actually obtain an associate degree in that area. Okay, so,
Am I correct in that the maximum number of hours that the universities are required to accept is 60? Is that correct?
It used to be the maximum they could accept.
For transfer?
Ours does up to 75.
Now, that's an old rule.
Yeah, that was an older, I think,
Okay.
we did used to abide by that one at SFA as well, so I know.
Okay, because money-wise, it would make a lot more sense for them to take any Common Core courses for lower at the community
The money,
college level and not
financial.
pay university prices.
right.
Yeah.
As long as there's no cap on the transfer school as to number of hours they will take.
Some degree programs, I think, though, can accept up to, like the math programs and stuff like that, can take
Right.
more of the lower level
About 90
courses,
hours.
but not typically for peer degrees in
Right,
criminal
exactly.
justice.
We also have.
My understanding is that even the BSCJ, that the university is to look at what are the requirements of the major itself and the upper level requirements. And that those are the things that restrict the number of hours coming in. That there's no longer this set number, like you said, you take 75 hours. Because I know UH Downtown, years ago, we quit, in all of our majors, we abandoned that restriction of the 60 hours or even 66 hours.
I know some have a
Because
required.
U of H denominates criminal law as an upper division course, it's not required to accept the field of study criminal law taught at 1310, taught at the freshman level. Is that correct?
But, no, we are. We say it comes in as a lower level. We would prefer you don't take it again as an upper level and take something else at an upper level. And if we have to, then we put it into their electives, depending on how many other lower levels they have. But we definitely, it's a field of study, so we are required to take it.
A lot of
Now,
times they only get
You
credit
may
as an elective.
you may find occasionally an advisor or something who needs to be taken aside and reminded of that. But just like people who say, well, we don't have to take such and such, and we say, well, no, if it's transcribed as an academic hour, like hours from an academy, if you transfer, like Wharton does, if you transfer it in as an academic hour, then we are obligated to take it as an academic hour. However whatever you categorize it as.
See, and what we're seeing is exactly what you said. We'll accept it as an elective,
Yeah.
but you have to take the
our
course
courses
over
too.
again with us.
Well, we don't do that
Or
because,
additional hours, because
You
you
didn't do
need
it.
X number of hours in upper division.
well, that's where all the
All of it's
four-year
kind of-
universities, it
Yeah.
would be good to get
You
together.
need to be on the same
Because
page.
why would you want a student to sit through a course often with the same textbook
That they've
Right.
had before.
that they had at the 2-year? And then, because every now and then a student will come and say, I don't know why I'm in this course, I already have this book, I already took this. And we would say, well, we need to pull you out of that, put you in something else.
So we got into an issue of not adding courses, but putting all of them and transferring things over as electives. But the problem for the students is that fills up all their electives, and then they can't take any of the upper level specialty courses at the university. So if we're offering interesting things that we're doing from our research that are dealing with like human trafficking or drug trafficking or whatever things that we have going on that our faculty specialize in, those are all capped now. That their electives are full from their transfer credits. And so they're stuck with just their criminology research methods and whatever else that we're.
Well, and I understand this would be more difficult for the four-year institutions, but how many institutions in here are actually having faculty advisors now?
Thank God we're not anymore.
We're not, and I don't like that.
Well, and it's not always the easiest at first, but we've found that we're graduating our students a lot faster now that we're having the faculty advise them.
We had problems with it at SFA because, you know, you wind up with maybe 700, some of you have more majors, and how many faculty members do you have? So we could not get our students in for classroom stuff, you know, asking about grades or finding about where they want to go for their careers or any of the discussions that we normally have, because all we did for months every single semester was advising appointments.
So,
And we just couldn't do it.
so what we're looking at is, once again, coming to an understanding of what can be done at the lower division, at the freshman, sophomore level, that can transfer in to most university systems. I mean, we can't, nothing's going to work perfectly for everybody. And what is interesting, what we're discovering, is the fact that as a field of study, we can make a field of study. Right now it's 5 courses. We can actually expand that a little bit, regardless of if it's going to be more than 60 hours. Because once they complete the field of study, and this is going to be interesting to our graduation departments, but once they complete the field of study, when they hit that 60, they're eligible to graduate with a 60-hour Associate of Arts degree or Associate of Applied Science. And it gets counted as completed our system. When they transfer to the 4-year, then they're going to have to finish out the other core requirements, or depending upon the 4-year institution, how many hours they will accept, the student could continue to take a few of them at a community college just because of the less expense to them. But then there's always this understanding the 4-year university number, how many they will and how many they won't. And that always becomes an issue with the advising departments, articulation departments, and whatnot. With us, it's down at systems and whatnot. What we would like to do right now, what we need to do right now, is take a look at that work form that we have, the worksheet. We don't, I don't know if we could, I don't have any real desire to expand it like some of them did, like they were showing. But, for example, our field of study is focused on criminal justice. But if for some reason or other in the field of study we wanted the students to take psychology, if everybody feels that at the lower division they need psychology, we can add psychology to the field of study for criminal justice. It doesn't have to be criminal justice only focused courses, and we can keep what we have, add to it. There's some discussion, there will be some discussion, I'm sure, on a couple of the courses that are currently in the criminal justice field of study, but it's possible to add more. If you believe that, for example, sociology and psychology are just a mainstay must for a student graduate associate's degree, we can add that to it. We know a lot of students will take, they don't all transfer to the 4-year. But what we're looking for is the hopes that they do transfer, what is going to transfer over the most and smoothly with everybody. So, if you've done this, what I would like to do is run down this list, and with just a show of hands, it'll take us a few minutes. What we'll do with the criminal justice ones we've got, and then look at the psych and soc. But we've got the category, definitely yes, should be in a field of study, probably should be, probably no, and definitely no. So we can just run down this. I can type in the numbers and save them for you.
I just want to ask a question, too, maybe before we do that. Just looking at least the criminal justice courses that are on this worksheet, how many in senior institutions teach any of these courses at a higher level? And see, that we've done, and we begin to adjust ours down so we didn't have this transfer issue. For instance, correctional systems, we taught it as a 3,000 level course. So that, if we could recognize our courses that are being taught at a higher level that are here, that could be part of the consideration of this committee, is to encourage our institutions maybe to to reconsider at what level they're taught, so it's kind of a smoother transition. It leaves open those electives.
That's what we're
where-
currently doing. We just did that this.
And that is a
so
big
next
issue. It's
semester
not
should be
something
complete.
simple to do either
No.
at those
2
levels.
years.
Yeah.
So let's
Can I
take
make
a,
one point of clarification? When we talked about electives, I was talking about general electives, not CJ
CJ
electives. Yeah,
right.
so it doesn't go into the upper level CJ electives, it goes into the general electives.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where the problem sometimes is, and it's at what level,
The
at least
course
these
is,
are
yeah.
being taught at community college, not the Wickham courses, but those, how they come in, to our institutions, so.
So with Intro to Criminal Justice, with the show of hands, how many of you have marked yes, or if you haven't done it yet, just agree that yes, 1301 should be part of the field of study? We have all 24 here, okay?
23, I think.
23? All right. Any probably yes? Did somebody I missed? Who was not here? All right. Court systems and practices, definitely yes. Okay, this is going to be easier if we say, okay, so it looks like 22, but we'll see. Probable yes. 1. Okay. Crime in America. Oh, this is a good one. Crime in America, definitely yes, should be in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Probably yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Probably no. Crime in America. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And definitely no. Okay, y'all are doing great. Fundamentals of criminal law, definitely yes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 19, somebody can double check. And probably yes. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Probably no. 1. Okay. Juvenile justice system. Definitely yes in the field of study core. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. No, it's not. Probably yes. 1, 2, 3, 6. Probably no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And definitely no. 1, 2. Thank you. Community resources and corrections. Should that be part of the field of study, criminal justice? Any yeses? Probably yes. 1, 2, 3, 6. Probably no. 5, 6. Definitely no. 6, 7. Thank you. Correctional systems and practices, should that be part of the CJ field of study? Definitely yes. 20. I get myself. We'll see in a minute. Okay. Thank you. 24. Probably yes. 1, 2, And anybody I missed? Probably no.
Definitely no.
Definitely no. All right. So, one, All right. Criminal investigation. Should that be part of the field of study? That everyone should have. Definitely yes.
I say yes.
Definitely yes. Okay. What do we have? Probably yes. 5, 7. Okay. Probably no. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And a definitely no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you. Legal aspects of law enforcement. Should that be part of the field of study? Definitely yes.
No, I like the Constitution.
I like the Constitution a lot.
Yeah,
I think
you
it's
need
pretty
both. 1,
important.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Probably yes. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Probably no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Definitely no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Police systems and practices. Definitely yes. Okay. Probably yes. 1, 2. All right. Probably no. And definitely no. 0. All right. So that is what we've got right here with what we find in the ACGM courses that are available to us. And our top 5 at this point, if you want to take some notes on that. Intro 23, courts 22, fundamentals criminal law 19, correctional systems and practices 20, and police systems 20. 1, 2.
Coincidentally, the same 5 that are already in
Yeah.
place. I don't think that's a coincidence. I lied.
Well, you never know. We've been here and seen a few of them disappear. All right, now the psychology courses. If you know, and we can, if we think that we want this student to know this information and have a well-rounded education, because psych and soc are not a required part of the core curriculum. However, in my institution, psych and soc are an alternate to the social and behavioral sciences. Yeah, here we go. Let me pull up down here. Social and behavioral. And so I've got, psych 2301, soc 1301, and 1306, whatever that may be. Yes, sir.
Question.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. I don't know if I'm out of line doing this.
got
I would just like to generally propose the core curriculum already has a requirement for a social behavioral sciences elective of some sort, which could cover psychology, any of these courses on this list. So maybe I just want to get out of here quicker, but I would like to propose that we just say all the rest gets taken care of in the core, not in our field of study, if that makes sense.
I think it would be
I'd
pretty.
second that
Yeah,
motion.
I do too.
So we have a motion before the committee that we leave the psychology and the sociology courses to the Yeah, to the institutions or with their social and behavioral science portion of the core, and not include them as part, not worry about including them as part of the CJ field of study. Yes, sir.
I point out on the second page, we actually get sociology 2336, which is criminology, which is what a lot of people who are teaching at AAs are actually doing as crime in America, which is 1307.
Right.
So that's an odd one.
And that was related to my question. Can you
I
have?
didn't get back to you, did I?
Yeah, no.
I am so sorry.
That's okay. So can you have, do you need to have one? Can you have one or the other? For example, criminology or crime in America?
They need to be cross-listed in the ACGM, which is a daunting prospect, but is probably something that somebody ought to take a careful look at, because I know I teach 1307 and I use a criminology textbook and teach it as a criminology course.
Right.
And if that, we're going to do that, then we should cross-list with the sociology course and have similar objectives. I've looked at the learning objectives for criminology and they're really close.
We do it already in our forensic science certificate. The Crime in America course is in that certificate, but it's either or you can take the 2336 sociology criminology. So we have that already in one of our certificates.
Okay, so the big issue is, I'll get right back with you, Ken. We have a motion to just leave these all to the side and not deal with them. We do have one awkward one, so.
With the exception of the criminology course.
Can I amend the motion?
Would you like to
Strike the
amend
rest?
that one?
Amend it, let's strike everything else, and then we'll visit sociology 2336 as a specific
Separately?
item.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I do want to visit it.
four-year universities, most of us teach that at an upper level, and it's
We
a very
do.
important course to us at an upper level.
And it's
Upper level,
it's
yeah.
broader than SOC, obviously. I mean, it's
Yeah.
SOC is definitely a big part of it, but psychology and biology are equally large. So
Now, we take it as a transfer if they've already taken it, but our preference is that they take it with us at an upper level.
Correct.
And we assign faculty to teach it and are very,
Specialized.
yes, and we, so.
How are the student learning objectives different for your upper division course than for Crime in America or for Sociology 2336?
Very writing intensive and very, we are going in and reworking some of our, we're adding service learning and all sorts of things to that. And we think it's very important to us.
You're talking about criminology.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what we do it too. Let me just read the course description of Crime in America, 1307. American crime problems in historical perspective, social and public policy factors affecting crime, impacting crime trends, social characteristics of specific crimes, and prevention of crime. Does that fit with criminology? And see, that's my disconnect here. If this course is being taught as a criminology course at the lower level, I see why higher ed institutions are having a problem with that. Even though you may be addressing some of that.
This is one of the courses that we probably should have discussed at the SLO meeting, but they wanted us to focus on the 5 that were in the FOS. This course description for the ACGM needs work in the modern world.
It doesn't match with its SLOs.
That's what,
In
yeah.
there, it specifically
Okay, so
mentions theories and things
let's
like
do,
that.
Yeah,
let's
that's the disconnect.
go back to the other
let's go back to the motion.
motion at hand.
You revise the motion to not take a look at psych and social with the exception of, what was it?
2336 criminology.
2336.
2336. And we will examine that one. Do we have a second? Is that motion proper?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One second.
Do we have a second for the motion to not worry about discussing psych and social with the exception of SOS 2336?
If you don't,
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Wait.
Whoa, back up.
Yeah, it's a discussion of that. I'd like to point out that
There is discussion.
if you're, as you mentioned, that there are things in the core, you can rely on the core to do the rest, I think you said. This committee can make a recommendation that students take a certain course as a core option if it's available to them at their institution. That's kind of like field of study light. You know, it's like saying, of course, it isn't quite in the field of study, but yet we really recommend you take it for the student's benefit. I kind of caution against that, though. I mean, you could do it, but it seems to me, just speaking for myself, that it seems like we either need to decide if it's in the field of study and students need it, or if it's not in the field of study and students don't need it.
The tricky part for us is that our fields come from parent fields of psychology and sociology and biology. So to say you need psych, that's a benefit for you, but it's as much a benefit as sociology or anthropology or a number of fields.
Political science.
So we really can't specify. You take the one that's going to benefit you, but also you're going to enjoy the most, and because that's probably the direction you're going to go in our field anyway. I think, which is kind of an interesting.
May I ask a question? I'm just curious, because before I came, I talked to the content experts in some of these courses, such as the psychology department and the sociology department. And said I was going to the board, so I wanted their opinions on it. And the 1100 Learning Framework, the psychology committee in the Dallas County Community College District has decided to delete these learning framework courses by 2019. They will stop offering them this fall, but by 2019 they'll be totally deleted. And I know this is listed on here.
Which one is that?
This is this learning framework, this 1100,
Oh, okay.
1200, 1300.
Right.
You know, it's on here. But I wanted to make that be noted to the committee that the Dallas County Community College District has decided to delete the psychology 1100, 1200, 1300 learning framework from that curriculum. The psychology committee voted on it. They don't like it. They say it interferes with the 2301 general psychology. Students get confused when taking this 1100 learning framework, thinking it's an actual psychology versus the 3 credit hour general psych, and they say it's irrelevant. And that's been brought to my attention, and that is what's going to happen, from my understanding, on that level.
So I have a question as part of this discussion on the motion. If Sociology 2336 is listed in the ACGM as a sophomore level course, it's a criminology course, how does that criminology differ from 3000 level criminology in the criminal justice programs?
Well, that's what I was just saying. We've been working, we accept it.
Right,
And we
I know.
do not require that they take criminology in any form or fashion. Our preference would be that they took it from us, because we've been working over the years to rework our criminology courses to include service learning requirements and as part of our ACE, to make them our ACE courses and to really differentiate between lower level and upper level. As we do with our, as we differentiate between our lower level and upper level courses.
So
we do the exact same thing.
We're doing something similar as well, trying to very much also have them.
It's a writing intensive course for us. Yeah.
Putting an application of this.
Textbook uses a number of different books from different
Right.
authors, so it's more intensive, more.
Yeah, and the readers, I mean,
Right,
that stuff
correct.
is nice, yeah. And also original research, we sometimes have them read that. We don't,
Right.
may not even
Right,
use
we're
books.
doing that more and more
So-
too, where they're reading the original research rather than
Or at least
secondary.
the
So it's just going
English
in more in
translation.
depth and more critical thinking. And
Right, the critical thinking skills are higher
And the
for us in
Yeah.
our institution.
We're doing the same thing. And having, a lot of our students are interested in criminal justice, so we're having them cross-apply the criminology thoughts to why are we doing what we're doing here in the system. So
Right.
that takes a little effort.
You know, I really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's great, but my students are reading original works too. So we just finished Foucault, and they loved it. I mean, it's not as if they can't handle it. I wonder if previously, before coming to community college, I was at a 4-year, and we actually had 2 criminology classes. I mean, we had the intro criminology, then we had the advanced criminology. which I thought was the sort of perfect melding of sort of allowing us to go further than. But
Well, when you have a limit of 120 hours for your entire degree,
Yeah.
and you're considering your number of hours in a major, it's restricts you. And, you can have 39 hours in a civil engineering FOS because they get to have more than 120 hours in their total degree.
That's right. It's a misleading
So,
example for that
to
reason.
say that is a little,
Architecture and engineering are the two that have exceptions to
They're
that.
monsters, yeah.
The minimum number of upper hours that students need, it's escaped me for some reason.
Depends on the institution.
It depends on the
ours is
institution.
36.
So that's something else we got to think about as well. If we start offering all these these lower level courses, that may interfere with that.
Well, yes, that's it.
Well, so the big issue right now, in order to bring this motion as we move forward with it, is the courses all except the sociology course, which we can come back to discuss. So the motion is to not even worry about a definite yes, maybe no, probably no, something like that, for all the other psychologies and sociology courses, because they are available as alternatives within the social behavioral science core requirement.
But we can still come back and talk about the crim later.
But we can
yeah.
still, yes, we're keeping the SOS 2336 up for discussion. All in favor of passing, all in favor of this motion, raise your right hand. We show a majority. Motion passes, so we will just simply put, defer to the institution on all psychology and the rest, and social with the exception of 2336 is not up for the field of study aspect. Let me see what's back here. All right, so it's an issue. Sociology 2336. So if a student was majoring in criminology or majoring in sociology, they took criminology class at in the lower division from whatever institute, 4-year, 2-year, and they transferred to a different 4-year school in sociology, they would be given credit for the criminology course. I don't know what other, I don't know if they have a lower level criminology and upper. I've seen that, as you mentioned, Jason, seen that in the past along those lines. So the big issue with this is, what are we going to do with crime in America? In terms of accepting, it's not even part of the field of study right now. It's just like number 8. We have, I say number 8. There's 13 that said, 13 that said definitely, or maybe, and 9 said no. I mean, that's a good solid wall there. But yes, sir.
My overall thought on this, mostly what we're talking about here is being ready to transfer. But a reality for our students in this particular discipline is an associate degree is enough. If they want to go to DPS only requires 60 credit hours. So ideally, our students should continue on. Please, I want them to go to the universities. But if they decide, I've got my associates, I'm good, DPS is calling, when we're just deciding our field of study, we're trying to cover all of the components of the criminal justice system. Do they have a basic level of functionality? So I would like to see something with crim theory in there some way, somehow, more than, in the intro class, we've got 1-2 chapters in the book, and then that's it, and we usually just kind of skip back up. Let's get to the meat. Our students should have a good foundation, or at least a passing familiarity with theory, like he had, the intro theory class. And then if they go on to the university, pick up an advanced theory class. Let's look at these again, let's get a more in-depth view. But I want to make sure we're covering both ends. Do we get the students that...
Right, but you can require whatever you want in your degree. So that if they don't go beyond your degree, then they have that.
Right.
But to say that we must take it and like I say, we take it, but to say that everybody must take it as a field of study is we're getting into a lot of hours in this field of study. So to keep adding and adding and adding, and that's I mean, I've talked to a lot of people before I came, not just from UH downtown, but from some other institutions in Houston, and that's the sticking point, that criminology.
And I
I
don't,
think also where it's actually being taught under 1307 and it doesn't match that course description. Something, there has to be some tweaking or cleaning up there.
I'm not talking about crime in America, I'm talking about
But
criminology.
I think that's where most, or do you accept Crime in America as
We
a crim
accept it as
course?
a lower level, if they've got enough hours, we accept it as a lower level, or we put it into general electives.
Yeah.
We try not to ever say, no, we don't take that at all towards your degree. But as you read the description, it's a very general.
yeah, it doesn't quite fit.
And is that where most of the two-year institutions are teaching criminology is 1307? I mean, that's kind of your.
Tends to be, yeah.
We
crim
actually end up
course.
steering, we have the core 5 field of study, and then they've got one more choice of a criminal justice. So we give them the choice of juveniles or investigations. And if they're planning to transfer to a university and they need at least a basic foundation in theory, we steer them towards juveniles, because that course, half of it is theory. It's delinquent theory, but it's generally crime theory. But if they're planning to just go straight into the field, then we'll let them go to investigations. Our concern is, at our level, after the 2-year degree, do they have enough of a familiarity with theory that they can function? Or
If
is that
1307 is taught as a theory class with a criminology textbook, they get their theory there.
I'm not concerned about the class specifically. I just want to make sure that they got some sort of theory in there, and we can discuss how that gets there. But I guess that first question is, do they need that theory at this
do
level?
one or the other, we have to do, get select one. That was going back to my original idea. Can we do one or the other, or do we?
The way I see it
do
is,
just one?
the four-year universities are concerned with giving too many lower-level courses. And we can offer Crime in America or 2336, 23, whatever it is, at the community college and require our students to take it without making four-year universities accept it in the field of study. If you add it in the field of study, every four-year school has to take it.
Sort of has to take it.
But has to accept it, but they want to give their own version of that course. So I can still offer Crime in America, or I could offer the sociology class without it being in the field of study.
And
as part of my
then nobody
degree.
will take it because it's not in the field of study. And
The
then
ones
they take
that,
field
the
of
ones that
study.
aren't going to transfer, I could make take it. I could build that degree for them. I don't have to have a transferable degree for every student out there, right? They don't all have to be on one degree plan. Transferable students are on the field of study. They're going to take that criminology course at the upper level whenever they get to the university. Does any four-year school have a lower level criminology course?
I just looked, and in our
Solid.
sociology department, no.
We don't have.
Everybody's taking it at the higher level,
Yes.
300,
Yes.
400 level. So
Yes.
if you're transferring, they're going to take that course. But my non-transferable students are over here on this degree plan, not the field of study, and they're taking whatever I tell them to take. The criminology or the sociology version, or the way you do it with Crime in America, they're taking that over
The main
here.
reason we do it is SAM, it's in their core.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as Crime in America. So we
Well,
continue
but,
to
I mean,
teach it.
so that's one university.
Yeah, that's one.
I mean, they like to think, excuse me on record, they're the only university with criminal justice, but that's one university. So to
And how many
students? Tailor the field of study for the rest of us to them, yeah.
I don't care whether it's
Yeah, I
field of
know.
study because I think field of study has absolutely no impact on the four-year schools.
Well, see, I don't know how you thumb your
does.
nose at the coordinating
Well,
board,
if-
you know,
if
but
I-
if it's field of study, it's field of study, and we're supposed to take
It's a problem
it.
that we run into
Yeah.
with our students, and if you look at the degree plans in the sample file and the degree plans for the university of what's in their core, there is no two degree plans for criminal justice that is alike across the entire state of Texas.
No, they're not.
If I could say something kind of following up with what James was saying. I like you, I encourage every one of my students, no matter what, to move on. And I have them, like I've said, at Prairie View, at UNT, at, Texas State, Sam Houston. And that's what I'm encouraging. I encourage mine the first day that they're in my class to get a master's. I encourage that. And I push and I push and I push. And I've had some leave, graduate with an associate's, saying I'm never going any further, and then a year later come back and say, okay, I gave in, I'm there. And I think that's wonderful. I have an 8-man department at our college. And although from an academic side, you may not think about it, an 8-man department's a big department in Texas. And so when you're looking at theory, I think like what James is saying, it depends. We have a big state. And whether you're in South Texas or deep Northeast Texas like I'm from, the 4 or 5-man department that's barely getting any training at all, that officer out there is really not that concerned with the theory aspect of it. What they're concerned with is, like I teach criminal investigations, because for some of them in a small sheriff's department, that's the only training they're really going to get. That my 30 years in law enforcement explaining things to them, that's all they're going to get. They're more concerned with hands-on, day-to-day experience than the theory, and then hopefully we can get them bounced back into it. I think the theory, a lot of times when we can get them into Houston and when we can get them into the bigger universities, they're going to get that theory there. So I think we're talking two different things. We have a lot of students that do stop, unfortunately, after an associate's. What do we need to give that student there? At the same time, what do we need as we encourage them to go on for their bachelor's and their master's? And I encourage a lot of writing in my class. And it's a struggle with an 18-year-old, I understand. It's a struggle with an 18-year-old telling them, I need a 6-page paper, and some can knock it out in an 8-hour, and some of them, they struggle all semester long trying to, how am I going to do this? So I understand your point also in that you're really trying to, that deeper level. Where are we preparing them? I think we need to prepare for that also. So I think it's a good argument to have, but it's going to be hard to solve. Because I'm like you, I totally understand why you want them to be at that level, to be able to take that original research.
Even if they got exposure in a course that, if you teach a course like a Crime in America or something and they're getting some exposure, it's good for the ones that go out on the street. I was that student. I was going to go out and, go into law enforcement. I had a federal contract signed and I went and broke my neck. So I got that understanding also. But anyway, when even if they get that a little bit at the community colleges, it's good for them. It's good for what they do when they go out there. It gives them something to think about. In addition, when they're trying to work with people, why is this person doing what they're doing? Maybe if they don't articulate it that way, but it's there. It's in their mind somewhere. But and it gets them ready. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that transfer. Then we can offer them another course, even if they got a little bit of a taste there and another taste here. It's a benefit. It just helps them more here. So without the transfer, it's still a benefit for them. I'm not suggesting that you don't have to even mention theory.
And I'm not either by any means. I think theory is important.
It feeds the why, right? It's the why question. Why do we do what we do?
Yeah, and let me just say something, that having been hiring people 10 years ago instead of educating them, and still talking to a lot of practitioners, we want people who know why we read them the Miranda rights. That's what you need on the street. You truly do. You don't need somebody who's just reciting a prayer, and which is what a lot of officers do. Well, I read them the Miranda rights. Well, why did you do it? Why is it important? So yesterday I was talking to somebody about coming to this meeting, and he said, just tell them that we need somebody who can write a compound sentence. And this is a probation department. Report writing. You're talking about report writing.
Right.
That's exceedingly important. But why do you need all these elements? And I think that's what's important. And we forget, a lot of times, I want them to do research. Why is this part of San Antonio so depressed? And why has it, we spend millions and millions of federal money, and we still can't get it out of the crime and the problems that it has? Yeah, they need that. They need to understand that.
Well, and I understand that, and I taught 1307 also until they
put us down to 60 hours. And we're trying to figure out, okay, where do we, and so I think it's part of my responsibility in the classroom to bring that in part of all of my courses.
So are we in agreement that we're not going to be adding 1307 or criminology as a required part of the field of study for criminal justice for the lower division? That's what I'm hearing. I mean, it's not, it wasn't even, when we voted, it was a real low, yeah, it's a definite yes. It's available. We managed with our institution, managed to get 1307, and if yours hasn't, you need to work on it, as an alternative in the social behavioral science block. I do have a lot of people that take it, but I also have a lot of non-CJ majors that are non-social majors. They just, Crime in America sounded good to them, and they enjoy the theory aspect of it. So, in the interest of moving on, we are at the point where SOC 2336 and CRIJ 1307 is not going to be added to the field of study requirement.
I did have one question, generally for the coordinating board person. Simply by not including it in the field of study doesn't mean it's going to be removed from the ACGM. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There's no, like, trying to get us down to 5 courses or 6 courses and everything else is going to be eliminated?
No. Although looking at things in a 3, 5, 10-year span, the courses that aren't in the field of study are likely to see falling enrollments as students leave those courses for the courses that they know will count towards the degree plan. And it's quite possible that those courses will die a natural death of low enrollment if they're not included in the field
But they
of study.
haven't now.
Well,
I mean, they're not in it
They're not in
now.
it now.
Kyle was saying,
But
if
that's
you
the thing, we've
require
already
it,
seen.
I mean, yeah, like I offer all 10 ACGM courses. 5 of them are not in the field of study, or however many are, and they make every year.
In
and
your
then-
degree plan, does it denominate field of study?
No, when we went to 60 hours, we changed it from field of study to liberal arts, but
My
we
school
kept
did
the.
exactly the same thing, which is why I think we haven't seen a change of enrollment. If we're required to denominate it on the degree plans as a FOS, I think what he's saying is absolutely true.
It might be, but
That
you
would
also still have
disappear.
people that aren't transferring.
But my point was that I've got all those students that are associate of applied science that aren't transferring.
right.
Where Crime in America still sits, and there's still half the students are taking it, and the ones that are going to transfer are still not required to take it. I didn't require them to take it.
It is, we have an 18-hour basic certificate in criminal justice where most of our students start. And those are the 5 that are in the FOS, plus 1, which is the 1307, and which is the 6. And and it's added because the state gives them financial aid for that 18-hour certificate. You have to add for those 6 courses. They can get aid, and we start them off that route, and that's a core completer. That's a completer. Then they move on to the degree plan of their choice, whether it's the field of study or whether it's the AAS. And when they complete that, that's 2 completers. That's 2 we get that we report to the state. So that 1307 is in that basic certificate in criminal justice where we start our students, and it's like a stackable. It's usually a stackable. And if they add an additional component, which is either the forensic science certificate or the digital forensics, that's a 3rd completer. And we get them to complete step after step on that level. So we use it for our basic 18-hour certificate starting. That's what Crime in
Well,
America
to
is
answer,
for.
partly answer the question about what happens to the courses that aren't in the field of study, I'll call your attention to this handout I gave you, which is a subset of the database that I emailed you earlier, to make it a little clearer. This is the number of courses, the number of colleges that offer each of the 10 criminal justice courses, the number of universities that offer them, and the enrollments. And you can see, not surprisingly, that the courses that are in the field of study are well represented in terms of the college enrollments and the university enrollments. But you can see the courses that have the lower enrollment numbers. And that shows you, you know, what the fate is of courses that aren't in the field of study, but that might be offered as part of associate's degrees. And this is something to keep in mind, you know, as you're considering what courses to add to a field of study, to take a look at what courses are already being offered by large numbers of universities. Because if you add if you add a course that only 4 or 5 universities are even offering, let alone accepting for credit, then you're creating a situation that might be a problem for them. I mean, not an unsolvable problem, but nevertheless a problem. And it's also worth considering how students are voting with their feet when it comes to enrollment numbers.
No, I feel like this is really part of the field of study, or should be part of the field of study discussion. When this meeting, when we finalize everything, can something go out to maybe university presidents from the coordinating board about all fields of study? Because if there are universities who are not accepting the current field of study, then there needs to be a discussion about that.
I don't know.
Because
What is
they're
the penalty for
obligated
that?
to do that.
We send, after every board meeting, the board meets 4 times a year, and after every board meeting, we send a memo, or have started sending a memo. We've done it the last 2 times, to all the CAOs and CIOs to tell them what was done for field of study at that last board meeting, and to remind them in some strongly worded language that they are required by state law to accept all field of study courses toward a degree program for credit. And we tell them it 4 times a year. But if they're not accepting field of study, then you need to let us know that, and we need to get them on the phone.
I wouldn't know that, we do. The other thing is this hour limit. You know, my understanding was that the coordinating board did away with our ability to limit transfer hours to 60.
Right.
And so what is there any
there a
limit?
rule on
Is
that?
there, you
Well,
know?
I'll ask, I don't know, but I'll ask Rex that. And I'll
What
ask
is
Rex to
that, and
answer
how
that
does that
question.
work?
Well, I'm assuming that most of our universities have a residency requirement that they have to take classes.
That's that's the other thing, yeah.
Right.
At the
Right.
home institution.
Right, and I
So
think
it
it's
limits.
bound up in
Correct.
that.
Correct. Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
not arbitrarily.
Right.
Right, and I think that's where, yeah, you're right, that's what
Yeah.
kind of adds the limit, because
Correct.
otherwise.
Yeah. We don't meet that
Okay,
requirement.
so why don't we take a 2-minute break? We get back, Eric's gonna run us through, next couple of questions on here, and see what we can get accomplished before the day's over. Make it 12 minutes.
students.
Something that's wrong.
You got 42.
Now that should
That's all
always,
government history,
I
et
think
cetera.
that's an absolute risk.
And then we've
because
got
of moving
18
away
left
from-
over for.
We knew it well. I mean, I knew it back
Right.
before that kind of master's.
Oh, no worries. This is the.
At A&M Corpus Christi, I know that.
Everybody.
I've looked at it.
I
But I don't
3
know
hours
that I
left
know it as
over
well as
where
I
I
do.
switch to what I want to do. You can do what you want.
I think
To answer Gus' question a minute ago about transfer hours, I checked on this and with the help of my colleague Becker Leslie. She says that statute says that institutions, four-year institutions are not required to take more than 66 credit hours in transfer. However, they can choose to take more, but they're not required to take more. What you would run up to at the ceiling for the number of semester credit hours they can take would be running into the residency requirement for SACS.
Right.
That SACS requires like a minimum of 25%, right, semester credit hours in residency, which would be 30
So hours.
30-something credit hours, right?
36, I believe.
36 credit hours, okay. So that would be the minimum, and quite often institutions, of course, will require more than 25% for residency requirements. So 66 is the required amount that institutions are required to take.
Thank you. That's helpful.
I guess reconvene here. We're a little bit, I think, behind, but a couple of the questions I think we should look at and address on that worksheet. Number 3, is there any essential course content that criminal justice majors should know at the lower division level that's not reflected in any current ACGM course? So, James.
Ethics.
Ethics.
There's a weapon criminal justice ethics, but there's not an ACGM one.
Okay.
So, I mean, currently in our school, we're suggesting students go take a philosophy course that the philosophy department agreed to teach to our interest, but I really would, on my wish list, love to see a criminal justice ethics in ACGM.
Okay. I agree with that. Yeah. I know we teach ethics at
We require it.
It kind of
upper
went in and
level.
out of popularity for a while. It was
Yeah.
taught everywhere.
Any other suggestions on courses? Yes, Camille.
Well, with the ethics, I was going to say we have it as an upper level course, but are you saying they should have it at the
Lower
you're saying
division.
At the
A lower division option, which is what the ACGM does. The Welcome to Workforce Manual, so students going through an AAS program attached to an academy of some sort, non-transferable classes, there is a criminal justice ethics course listed there. But in the academic course guide manual, the transferable classes, there is not a criminal justice ethics class listed in there at the lower division level. So when we advise our students, we end up advising our students just to go to the general ethics class, but everything that goes wrong in the criminal justice field traces back to ethics as far as I'm concerned.
And why I think that's important at that level, because a lot of these, the practitioner-based programs like yours, they really need that underpinning in ethics before they, start their careers or engage their careers. What would we have to make a recommendation to include that in the ACGM?
Well, yes, you could recommend that the coordinating board call a learning outcomes committee, which would be drawn of faculty like yourselves from programs across the state. They would look very carefully at existing syllabi in the state, and then would consider, if you recommend they create a course, then they would look at existing syllabi, do the research, have a debate, and come up with the course description and the learning objectives for that course. So that's something you could do. And while they were at it, they would probably look at all the courses for criminal justice in the ACGM and give them a refresher. If you'll see on the handout I gave you, where it says action, the courses that have Learning Objective 2014, that was the last time those courses were discussed by our Learning Objectives Committee to look at their course descriptions and their learning objectives in the ACGM. It looks like Crime in America, Juvenile Justice, Community Resources, Criminal Investigation, Legal Aspects haven't had a committee look at them yet or in some time. So So if a committee were to come, they would probably consider those courses, right, learning objectives for them and see if they could come up with a new course if you recommended one in ethics. If you decided to do that for this field of study, that would slow down the implementation of this field of study by a while until that course could be up and running.
But we can make a separate recommendation.
You could make a separate recommendation, and this committee will come back in 5 years and see how the field of study's been doing. And by then, that course will have been implemented, and you will have been able to see how widely it's taught, what the enrollment figures look like, if it's been successful, and determine then if it belongs in the field of study.
Could you use the CJSA 1348? Because that is the welcome ethics in criminal justice.
That's the
a
safer
model.
and quicker option, which would be to take an existing course in the ACGM, and what your committee can do is add or modify the course description or learning objectives for an existing course. If you want to add it to the introductory course, you could do so, where part of the course learning objectives for introduction to criminal justice is discussion of ethics, particularly X, Y, or Z.
But what I'm saying is that we have the welcome portion, the welcome ethics in our AAS. And I'm saying if we were to want to change the rubric, and that's what we're discussing, changing the rubric from the welcome to the ACGM, and it said to make it a transferable course, pretty much. And we use that enrollment model from the welcome. If we said the enrollment has been steady over the past year, it's been going great. But the problem may be that when the students get ready to transfer their ethics to a university, either they say no, or they take it and they put it in an elective. So being that it's already successful as a welcome, the model we're using is could we make it a ACGM CRIJ credit
Convert it.
rubric, and to make it more of a now of a transferable into the. But then again, I know UNT, you all teach it at an upper level.
At an upper level. What are some of the senior institution things their faculty think about?
Ours is another one of our writing intensive, which requires not only a certain number of written pages, but we have to edit, we have to give it back. There's a lot that's required of the faculty member, and you have to prove that you've done these things. And so, and I'm just going to be honest, it's a very high enrollment course for us. So, it would not be something popular for me to go back and say, guess what? This is going to come through field of study.
I don't think we're suggesting
But-
this question doesn't lend itself to field of study.
No, yeah, just a transferable possibility.
Well, yeah.
And again, for those of
But
our students who aren't going on, they need
for a transferable
ethics.
possibility, and particularly for students who are not going on. It definitely does seem to me to be something that they should have. It is woven through every other course,
Right.
but
That's how we do it.
but having a separate course gives you the opportunity to really.
I'm not thinking that you were suggesting to be a part of the field study, just, or Patrick,
Yeah.
that it would just be, it would be an ACGM
Yeah.
as a transferable course instead of a WECM course.
And it shouldn't be that difficult, because within WECM, there is a version of Intro to Criminal Justice, court systems. Pretty much everything we've got in our field of study, with the exception of corrections, exists also in WECM. And the descriptions are identical, pretty much. The only difference between the WECM and the ACGM version is the credentials of the person teaching the class, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think it would be easy to port over the WECM version into ACGM, and then just say, if you're going to teach the ACGM version, you must have the credentials.
Would it have to have the same process, Dr. Minchie, for this committee to make that recommendation on?
This committee can make that recommendation, sure. By and large, we can't use WECM courses in the field of study. They'd have to be cross-listed. That's a complicated thing. Again, you're right about teacher credentials would be different. Learning outcomes would be different. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a big step to usually the ACGM and the WECM courses are best kept, in their own separate categories for their own separate degree programs. But it might be easier to create a new academic course guide manual course modeled on the WECM course, rather than to take an actual WECM course and
Right, just use it as a
cross-list it
guide.
with the ACGM.
So it would actually be in both places?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It would be in both, if they approved a new course, it could be offered as a WECM or it could be offered as an ACGM. if
I
that's-
was just wishing that Rebecca Leslie would walk into the room, and I looked that way, and in she walked. I just made it so with my mind. This is Rebecca Leslie, my colleague who works closely with the Academic Course Guide Manual and WECM, and she's much better positioned to answer that question. While you were walking down the stairs, we were talking about if a WECM course could be cross-listed or used in the ACG.
Originally, I think when the field of study for criminal justice was developed, I think they did cross-list some WICM and the academic. However, I don't advise that just on a regular basis because we don't need to be looking at workforce programs to figure out what's happening at the university. This is for transfer, so you need to be looking at what universities are doing. Are they offering at the upper division? What are their learning outcomes? Not what the WECM learning outcomes are. What are universities' learning outcomes? So just to take something out of WECM and say, now it's in the field of study, I think that's a disadvantage of really vetting the needs completely and thoughtfully. Now you can say we need an ethics course. If that's what the will of the committee wants, that's fine. But to say we're going to immediately take a WECM course and make it transfer, I think that's rushing the process, and it would not align with what we do now. We look at university syllabi, we look at their learning outcomes, and then we develop a course. Not taking something that's pre-existing in the WECM because it may meet all the criteria, but we don't know that. We don't know that until you go out and look at all the curriculum. And also there's the issue of where does this fit in the curriculum of a university? Is it an upper division course more often, or is it lower division? And that can create problems for students too. So I kind of recommend against that to push the idea of automatic because it's in our WECM. Well, the purpose of WECM is to get someone in the workforce. The purpose of transfer is to get them to go to university. So we need to be looking at universities, not WECM.
And it seems like, based on the earlier conversation of if it's not listed as an FOS, that many courses will die a natural death, it seems odd to be considering adding courses to the ACGM.
Well, times change, which is why this committee hasn't met since 2003 or something. And we just want to make sure that the discipline is keeping up with current trends with what students need to know, because what students need to know change. So we can add a course if it's necessary. If it's not necessary, then don't. But if there's a big hole in what students need to know in order to succeed at those upper division level courses, then you should think about your experience, especially those of you at the four-year institutions with your majors, your students who are juniors and seniors, and think of the students who have transferred into your programs. Are you happy with what they're coming in with? Are there recurring problems that you've had with with holes in their knowledge or in their experience that are causing students who you know are smart, capable students, but they're not doing as well in your upper division level classes as you think they could because of a lack of preparation that they're transferring in with? That's what we're really here to discuss, because if that gap needs to be fixed by a new course, then that's something that we can do if we need to.
Well, if we're talking about simply the transfer and not the terminal associate's degree student, then we don't see them not having an ethics course as a whole in their transfer.
Yeah, because we're
we
gonna fill it.
expect to take care of that when they get to us. And we expect that there's certainly some discussion of it in every one of the SOS classes.
Yes.
I mean, there should be some discussion of it in all of those classes.
What's an SOS class?
I mean, FOS. is what I'm saying.
Sometimes it feels SOS.
Save our
We do as well, yeah. We have an objective for each of our courses that involves ethics. We have to have a discussion of them there. All of it is assessed, essentially.
We can, I think, just maybe table that. That's a good suggestion, and it is available, I guess, in the Wickham area. Other courses that you see or content that maybe is not being taught that criminal justice majors should know, at least at these lower levels.
I think juvenile justice, if you look at the field of study, we cover all the other major components, courts, police, corrections, and missing is the major component of juvenile justice. And a number of people who work in the field are working with juveniles in some capacity. So I think that.
Second and third and fourth then.
I'm sorry?
So that's second and third and fourth
Okay.
then, yeah.
So I think that really needs to be added.
Okay. Juvenile justice.
Except in the 5 field of study courses that exist now, there's a juvenile justice component to all of those. You teach about juvenile courts, you go over juvenile statistics, in your intro class and the state of
There's a
juvenile
juvenile
justice.
chapter in that.
Yeah, there's.
Court, you covered in there, criminal law, you talk about laws and how they pertain to juveniles and how it's different. I guess that's my take.
Working with juveniles.
We
and
talk about
police
juvenile
courses.
institutions, correctional institutions.
And special practices in holding juveniles with police and all of that comes in the police systems as well, so.
I would say that if I had a chance, though, to get rid of one of the chapters from my intro class, the juvenile one would be the one I would jettison.
Really?
Well, if I have another class that I can send my students to where they have that, then that's where I would actually focus my attention. Because it always comes kind of at the end of the semester. It always, okay, the words are different, the process. I think that I could make better use out of my time in those classes, spending, more time talking about rule of law or something along those lines, rather than kind of, shoehorning in a little bit of juvenile justice. And then having a separate course where I could do just that. For me, and we already teach the juvenile justice class anyway, and so that's kind of, where I spend most of my time actually, talking about juveniles. So.
Let me throw this one out, and then we'll come back to some more discussion about juvenile justice and the other courses. But one of the things that I see that's kind of missing is police-community relations or community relations and criminal justice. And with all that is going on out there in terms of negative police encounters, and what about that topic or some course addressing that content of community relations and criminal justice?
A lot of us teach it. We teach it at an upper level as well.
What course do you teach?
Police systems and
I think it is
practices.
called police and communities. It's not my course, but yeah, I think that's what we call it. And essentially, some of that, we actually send our students out to work with our police departments on some level. So some of that is done actually on the, or have them come in and
senior institutions kind of addressing it in the same way as an upper level
Yes,
course?
and we expect them to come in from police systems and practices, having had
the basics.
many a discussion.
Right, yeah.
And I'm guessing that all of you from the community college level do that.
It's a key section of
Right.
the police
Right.
systems. and
So you feel like
practices.
you're
Right.
adequately
Police systems and
addressing.
practices, a key section of that course is
the how to-
community policing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give, this is my Linda's answer for the juvenile justice, because that's the one that I shoehorn into every one of my classes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and this has nothing to do with FOS, but I think it is a statewide issue. Here within the next 2 months, if you're a 16-year-old trying to get a driver's license in Texas, you're going to have to start watching a film on how you're supposed to act when the police stop you.
Thanks to Senator West and Dallas, right?
Yeah, and they're changing TCO, the whole basic, and they're adding in a component for that. So I mean, they're training law enforcement statewide, and how do you appropriately interact with the community, and they're taking every teenager
and their driver's ed and making that a component of, if you want to get a driver's license, you're going to have to learn how to act when the police stop you, because what they found in the research is so many, as walking down a mall in Dallas the other day, I saw a girl say, I'm going to go report them to the police for being racist. That's not illegal. It's wrong, but it's not illegal. And I think, what we're finding is so many young people, which we're getting into our classes, they don't understand community relations and they don't understand constitutionality, and so that
Are
we need
they
to
adding
address.
police officer training and perhaps better ways to deal with the public? as
Yes,
part
that's
of
what I'm
the
saying.
academy?
TCO is actually mandating, they're changing their whole basic academy and adding a component of that in there. At the same time, they're trying to reach out to the community and say, we somehow have to meet in the middle.
We have this, this is related to that, but not quite, I won't go too far off, but we had our local police department. So we market ourselves as faculty to our local police department, saying, we know you're all small departments and we know you need work done and we're low budget, so if you need research done, come to us. And so they do. Anyway, our local police departments came and said, we all wear officer cam footage, can you help us out and assess that? But in addition to that, what we did was we took their footage, and then what they wanted, they requested this from us, is the stuff that we can show, so nothing that's in somebody's home. And most of this stuff doesn't actually involve anything too terribly illegal or anything, it's just behavior. It's just normal officer behavior, but we show it to like a focus group and record their reactions to it, and then we train the officers with the reactions from the focus group. Like, this is how they see what you're doing, and even though it's not illegal behavior, this is the perception of the people watching you. So we do stuff like that, but we involve sometimes our students with these things, and sometimes in those upper level CJ classes.
The next question here, an associate degree is 60 semester hours unless there's a compelling academic reason. The Common Core or the Texas Core curriculum requires 42 SCH. It is possible to have, is it possible to have an 18-hour field study curriculum in criminal justice that allows students to transfer with a completed course? So that's the question I think before us now is, should we expand the field of study from 15 to 18? And if so, what courses, and my understanding it would be from this, that could be recommended to
Yeah, we currently have 15 that
address
most
that
like,
question.
right? We're good with
Right,
those?
right.
Okay, so we
Okay,
need one.
so along those lines, as Camille was pointing out, we cover every other system, but we don't cover juvenile justice system, and it's always been an irk for many years with that, because we seem to have limited ourselves, well, we had to. When we started this, or whether we had to or not, we did, and now with an understanding, we can expand it. We can go to a 6th course and pick up that juvenile justice, which we don't have to, it's like anything else. I have one chapter on juvenile justice, I have one chapter in courts on it, but I've got other chapters I spend a lot of time on, and I feel like I'm always shortchanging them. I've taught juvenile justice before, and the arena of it, the breadth of it is so much more extensive than just that. With that said, looking at can we expand it to an 18-hour course, an 18-hour field of study, we would be adding a 6th course to the 5 existing ones that we have already.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Just so I'm clear on the distinction here, right? So if we put something in the FOS, then universities are required to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard, and I think some really good points at the 2-year institution about ethics, theory, juvenile justice as pieces that are important if somebody's getting an associate degree. I guess my question is, can't those institutions develop their associate program to reflect whatever they think is important, including making it 18 hours, if they wanted? And this, the stuff that would have to be transferred would still be what it is.
It depends on which one. The Associate of Arts, the AA, is we've got the field of study criminal justice. So we got 42-hour core, 15 there, leaves 1 course.
Sure.
And right now, if we've tagged in psychology, which I would be glad to take out and put juvenile justice in and let them opt for sociology or psychology in the social behavioral requirement. The AAS, you have a little more of a expansion with that, but you
But that's
still have.
institution specific, no?
It is. You still have the 42-hour core.
Right.
The state says 60 hours. You're gonna, it's a 60-hour degree.
Right.
And so if in the AAS you're using the field of study, then you have the same restrictions. You don't have to.
I guess I would just say I would rather leave it to the institutions to determine what their priority is. So somebody said they want theory for somebody who comes out with 60 hours. Somebody else might say juvenile justice.
But does
put in
that-
the FOS,
And-
then it's, everyone has to do it.
Agreed, we're not
And if
a
we're
heavy
using
focus
the
on juvenile
criteria
justice.
of what the universities are looking for and holes coming in, if you look at the data on university enrollments, juvenile justice is second lowest.
It is.
So
It's only
that
5
tells me there
universities.
the universities don't think there's a hole.
No, we teach it regularly. I mean, imagine most of the
Yeah,
4
we
years.
teach it.
And, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. We
What-
teach it
what
regularly
level
at
do
the
you
4 year.
teach it
and
on?
yeah,
But
It's
it's
taught
not
as,
something that we
See,
have
here,
to
you
read
got-
as a.
Yeah.
other than maybe an intro, you covered it in a week in
There's
an
only
intro class.
5 universities that teach it as a 1313.
Yeah.
At the lower
Yeah,
level.
at the
This
lower
is only
level.
as a lower level.
So,
It's just not done
Would-
much there.
if we were to increase the field of study from 15 to 18, would we want to consider adding juvenile justice? The 1313 is that additional field of study course.
I'm
And
not
that's the
comfortable
discussion.
increasing the number yet. Didn't we already vote on this? And what was our original vote with probably yes, or definitely yes, probably no?
For the
Didn't-
juvenile.
For
Juvenile
juvenile?
justice was kind of split.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the one that.
And let me just clarify, I'm not picking on juvenile justice or theory or ethics, like they all have merit,
Right.
I guess I'm making a broader philosophical point about
Allowing more.
there's a question of what we're gonna put in, if we're gonna change these 5 courses that everyone has to play by versus allowing institutions to have courses in the course catalog that they can require for their associate's degree or their 4-year degree. I
And
think
that they focus on, right, focus
Right.
areas.
Could we do this? And I don't know, could you, if we were wanting to increase, and there maybe not be a desire to increase it from 15 to 18, but as Rob was saying, leave open maybe, or at the discretion of the 2-year institution, what that course might be, that next course. So they could actually transfer in.
Yeah, but then we're just
18
saying,
out.
let's increase it just to increase it.
Yeah.
We should only
Well-
increase it if it's filling a
Not just to
specific
increase
hole.
it, to help our enrollment.
Right, which is not the
That's not
purpose
just
of
to increase
this,
it.
of this meeting.
Well, we're already doing 18 credit hours at the lower division
y'all have
level
kinda
to
done that
make it
anyway,
an
right?
associate
Essentially
degree,
selected this
an
course.
associate degree of this flavor. So whether you're doing 18 hours of just pure criminal justice, or you're doing the 15 core that are already designated in one more class of basket weaving, because that's good. 18 hours is there. As
Yeah,
it
y'all
is.
are already doing.
Whether or not we want to go to 18 hours that should just be criminal justice, I think that's what we're talking now.
And I don't think we need to look at, I think we need to take self out of this. I think we all need to step back and go, is this better for community college teachers? Is this better for university? I think we need to focus on what the student needs that maybe they're not getting. So are they getting juvenile justice everywhere here?
We require it.
Yeah, I think they
Okay.
should.
Are they?
We don't require.
Okay.
We don't require it
And-
either, but we do teach it in several courses.
Juvenile justice and a big dose of constitutional law. Those are my 2 things. Everybody might have different things. I want to know that our students, I don't care how they piece this thing together, I want them to understand as government employees and as public servants what our government is about and built on, and understand, Miranda, when you do that, ethics start to flow in because they see the right and wrong. I think we just need to get back from this side doesn't want any more and we want one more, to what does the student need?
The students are getting a lot of.
Right, but what do they
I mean,
need in the transfer? What
Right,
do
in
they
the
need in
transfer.
being
But what do they
prepared to
need by
go
the time
to
they get through your school that maybe they haven't got?
coming to our school?
Yeah. But they're
Well,
gonna get
actually,
those things
both.
in our school.
Are you teaching an
Yeah.
upper level con law?
Tons of it,
Yes.
yes. We
Yes.
have a
We have
Harvard
two.
Oh, yeah,
attorney that
we've
teaches
got-
it, yeah.
Part 1 and 2.
Okay, and then juvenile justice is not covered at every school.
It's covered in almost all of our schools.
Did we know, Alan,
But at
how
a
many
higher
schools
level.
aren't?
At a higher
covered
level,
with that?
yeah, but it is covered in
Current law.
Juvenile justice, can we know how many university?
5 at the lower
At the
level.
lower level, but
At the lower level. And that's what this report, that means
Yeah.
only 5 teach it as a 13.
I've never
13.
seen a four-year university that doesn't offer juvenile justice.
yeah, at
Yeah,
a
it's
higher level,
usually-
at least as an elective course, yeah.
Right.
But Beth is saying theirs does.
They don't require
We have
that.
it. We've got several,
No,
but it's not
this is
required.
how many universities have the 1313, the lower division version.
It's not in our
Most
core and it's not in.
universities
Most
have
of us are
upper
offering
division. Usually it's
3,000
a
or
3,000 level,
3,000
4,000.
junior.
But the same thing happens with, with correctional systems. Universities pulled that one from a 3,000 level to a 2,000 level. When we did the core in 2003, the field study core, there were a lot of changes at the university levels to accommodate that transfer over. And one of the things is exactly what you're saying. I've always felt that one of the components that our students are missing from a 2-year degree is an understanding of, a full understanding of juvenile justice or constitutional law. Both of them are kind of missing, but we just can't keep expanding that. And I've looked at the degrees that Alan sent us, and it's a kind of a hit and miss. Juvenile justice is an alternate choice. You can take this or this. Take 4 of these, any of the 8 that are listed. So it's not a guarantee that they're going to take it. But so we've got intro. Every 4-year school does intro. Court systems is different, but we all feel like courts is important. Fundamentals of criminal law is there. Obviously the ones that are the standard 5. But my experience, it's just simply the students don't understand juvenile justice system. Now, maybe it's a question of, do they need to understand it at the freshman and sophomore level, or is it better understood at the junior and senior level? That's
Or are there
maybe
different
the
classes
split.
where you need layering of learning, where you're not trying to get it all at one, in one course?
But wouldn't you be able to, if juvenile justice, and I don't dispute that it's important, but if it is important for your program, couldn't you just have that as a requirement in your associate's degree?
As your 6th alternative. I like the idea of giving students
And
choice.
Because somebody else might say, well, I really want them, somebody else said it earlier, right? I think you said, I really want them to have some exposure to theory.
Well, then the problem that we encounter with our students coming back to us is the climbing the wall from the two-year courses to the 4-year acceptance of everything. And then they say, well, for example, court system. They say they won't accept it. I said, well, they have to accept it. It's part of the field study.
Yeah.
And they said, but they won't accept it, and it's just some kind of elective and doesn't mean anything to them. I'm like, and I hear that, and they're not saying it doesn't mean anything. But in the sense of, this is part of our degree plan, this is part of our degree plan, this is part of our degree plan. And so to add it just arbitrarily, then we run into that problem. Here's the 5 field of study courses, and we want them to take juvenile justice. When they go, yes, you take these and plug them in. This one really you play with more than the others. I think that's the only head thing. So what we're looking for is transferability from the lower division to the upper division, and the information that needs to
But if we're talking
be
about,
presented.
if we're talking about gaps though, in terms of knowledge, then the students coming to us don't have a gap in that because they're getting it at our university. So there's not a gap for us there. Now, if you want to teach it as the 6th course, which doesn't necessarily, I appreciate what you're saying in terms of transferability, as the one that you like to focus on, or your institution likes to focus on, that makes sense because some people won't transfer, and I think it's an important thing to have. But then other universities may want theory or ethics or something else in that place, but we're not feeling a gap at the higher level because we all offer it. So it's not something that we're stressed about in terms of us,
Well,
whether they're gonna get it.
and that's the crazy thing, Wendy, because we all offer intro and we all offer
Yeah.
corrections at different levels. There, I don't know that, there would be a gap, but they're coming from the 2 years. So what can we offer at the 2-year level that is going to help escalate what you can give them at the 4-year level? So in other words, there's one less course that or there's one more course you can give because you don't have to worry about juvenile justice. One less course to offer.
Well, but that's not what we were really told. We were told, what gaps are you seeing?
Right. Well, but
as they come to you in preparation.
Can I agree with Rob? I think maybe this could be handled more at the 2-year level, and to some extent, Richard, I think when you're talking about juvenile justice, it sounds like you're seeing it as something completely separate. But I agree with others, and I just scanned through some of the leading textbooks and some of these classes, and I mean it's anywhere from 10 to 25% subset related to juveniles, whether it's something related to juvenile court system or age as a correlative crime, and then a whole section about juveniles, juvenile correctional system, working with juveniles and police courses. So I don't see a gap.
I don't disagree with you, but everything everyone's saying, but as we can say the same thing about corrections, and I can say the same thing about court systems. But as we go, one of the things I tell my students, and I suspect everybody at some point does with the intro course, is here's a few little chapters about corrections, but we've got courses on that. And you focus completely on that, not just kind of, I'm going to present courts along with what police do and what the courts do. And that's the, I guess, the core of my statements, is that it's an opportunity to say, okay, you've had it, but now this is what we do with it. Because it's the same thing we do with corrections. You've had corrections in the other courses, tidbits of it, but now we're going to expand it.
But each instructor could handle that individually instead of adding another course.
Well,
to the
you're limited.
I mean, so for example, when I teach policing class, I probably spend a month on community policing, mainly because that has been an area of research. So I would say that could just, if juvenile justice is that important, then spend 4 weeks on it instead of 2.
Yeah.
At the individual level.
And in our intro classes, one of the first things we say to them is, what are the 3 subsystems of the criminal justice system? And we teach a separate course in each one of those 3 subsystems.
Right, what you do.
So, and the community colleges do. And that's why it's part of the FOS.
Right.
I'm also not sure if that particular juvenile justice overrides over saying, okay, forget the gap, we could just count it, and then it will give the students a credit coming from a community college in our program. Well, then we have the issue of is that more important than any of the other courses that other people find important, which kind of goes back to Rob's purpose, which is maybe it is to you, but maybe it isn't to some other program.
What feeds
the
criminal justice system?
Right.
What feeds the criminal justice system?
And ethics
and I agree,
criminology.
But I think this committee, to me, we need to look at filling those gaps between the 2-year institutions, the 4-year institutions, making the students most successful. And I agree, the juvenile system is so imperative.
Yeah, I don't
But
disagree.
in Texas, to be a juvenile probation officer, you're going to have a bachelor's degree. And that system changes so much, so fast. From a personal standpoint, I'd rather them have that emphasis really heavy right before they graduate and being prepared to go out there into the workforce.
But that police officer who is arresting that juvenile, does he just see him as a miniature adult? That's the other piece to that.
And I think that goes back into theory and everything.
TCOL's responsible for handling that.
Yeah, and again, they're changing. TCOL is changing the basic right now.
TCOL, what they're current is 8 hours in juvenile law.
Yeah, they're learning from us.
Camille, did you have some comments
and
some thoughts on
okay,
this?
let me say this, because some folks have mentioned self-interest. Clearly, we think juvenile justice is very, very important. But The degree is criminal justice, and as Beth said, there are subcomponents. And again, juvenile justice is a big part, and it's a big part of the field that our persons, our graduates, when they go into the workforce, a lot of people are working with young people. And if we do a good job on the juvenile justice end with people understanding young people and how the system works, then hopefully things will be better at the criminal justice side. I'm not saying a course in juvenile justice alone will solve that, but it is a big part of the whole picture. And I agree with the comments that in a course where you have one chapter that's usually at the end of the textbook, when you're running out of time, it doesn't get the quality that I think it really needs. So because we have the major components there, everything except, it's a glaring gap, in my opinion, to have all the others there. Because as was said, all of these others overlap in all the other courses as well that are in the FOS, but juvenile justice. So it's missing, and it's time to change it. We have, as other people have said, these issues between young people, police, all of these kinds of stuff. Those can also overlap in the juvenile justice course. And if it will ease the transfer process, if a number of community colleges are covering it, then that would be good. And I feel like I'm shouting. My kids tell me I do that a lot. Sorry.
Like I am.
Me too.
I have to say, I agree with Camille. And this is totally against self-interest for me to say this, because of what we would have to do if this were part of the FOS. It really is. I mean, the juvenile justice system is not add youth and stir. It's not just like the criminal justice system, but for younger people. It's very different. And I have to agree that it is a glaring gap in just the fundamental basis of what we want our majors to know. And even coming in, I actually had a faculty member who was teaching a corrections course, and she was complaining to me that her students in her 2000 level corrections course didn't know anything about juvenile justice, and she was talking about juvenile corrections because it was at the end of the textbook in the intro course, and so they just, it just went straight over their head, and they really didn't have the foundation. So having a separate course on juvenile justice at that level, it does make sense to me. What we would have to do probably, because we offer all of the FOS courses at the lower division levels. And so there is a one-on-one correspondence between what they're bringing in from the community college. So we would have to offer our juvenile justice course at a lower level, then we'd have to drop it from 3,000 to 2,000.
That's what we did with our correctional systems. We dropped it.
We would have to,
and I think the same thing.
because I can't
would be
imagine
here.
having separate
Yeah.
books. I can't imagine that the textbooks would be much different.
To answer the earlier question about that, it looks like there are 8. Please ignore this column because it didn't sort and expand the thing because all the cells aren't the same size. I mean, Excel makes me nuts. But it looks like 8 universities teach it at the junior level, and 3 universities teach it at the senior level. And as you see on the sheet, it looks like 5 universities teach it at the lower division level. So not that far apart. But for the most part, it's done at the junior level. If these all count as what you're discussing, juvenile delinquency is the same thing, juvenile probation.
It is the same
Maybe
thing,
it's
it's
not courses.
juvenile delinquency
If you
and
don't
the juvenile
consider those
justice
courses,
system
it's
is
not
out there.
No.
It's usually called the same way, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It would be 6 courses.
I would say a class that combined
Crime
juvenile,
and
what is in
delinquency,
juvenile delinquency
court
and juvenile
system, yeah,
justice
juvenile.
would be much more meritorious than just juvenile justice as something to
Well,
add to
the
this.
juvenile justice system course does
No, we have
do
some
double duty. It does explore the
These are
juvenile
just the
justice
courses that have the
system,
word
and it
juvenile
does
in
give
Right.
There is
basic
It would be
primer
the
on
lower
safety.
level survey course.
It's a lower level basics, get you started, and
Like
then
minorities in the criminal justice system could deal with.
So would we want to consider, and good conversation, to increase the field of study by adding juvenile justice? Should we put it to a vote?
Let's
and
put it to a vote.
Let's do that.
See if we want to do that, in tweaking this field of study. So is there a motion that we increase the field of study by 3 hours or one course, and that course be juvenile justice.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
So all in favor, raise your hand. You want to count?
I know people are shocked, but
It's okay. I think it's gonna be.
I basically
Sure it's juvenile justice. Okay. Yeah. The
16,
13,
right?
13, the Lord of. All opposed, or any opposed, raise your hand. 7 opposed, motion passes to make that recommendation.
13, or 16 on the first one and 7.
Okay, so we're gonna have
16 and 7.
6 field of study classes, and we've listed them, so if you're now teaching any of the others, they're gonna go by the wayside, right? That
I don't
pretty
think so,
much-
no. We're actually adding one into the field of study.
I know, but the maximum number of courses
you
in
mean-
addition to the core is 18 hours, so if you start with 15 and add 3 fifths, that's 18, which means no, it wouldn't make any sense to offer any other criminal justice courses
Linda, do
because
y'all
you
have an
exceed the 60.
AAS?
We have AAS and AA.
They
That's
could be
where they
offered
come
as
in.
well.
I mean, they should still populate, I mean, those are, is that not happening at your
Not
school?
happening, yeah.
Okay.
The criminal justice field of study classes do count towards the social behavioral sciences component in the core curriculum. So if you just wanted to add, we've gone to the 18 hours, including juveniles. If you want more criminal justice classes to offer for your students to take, they can have Intro to CJ populate as their social behavioral sciences component in the core, and then you still have more room for another criminal justice class.
You can manipulate that, and I don't mean that in a
Except,
bad
well,
way,
I
except that
sat
it
on the
would.
core committee at my college, and everybody in their own specialties is very protective, and I can guarantee the psych and social people don't want any. I was lucky to get in 1307, the theory criminology class. They want big psychology and sociology departments.
Well, they can do that for themselves, but for your majors, it won't affect our majors. You know, it won't cut them short if that's what you want to do, if that's what they want to do.
So we'll have one 2,000 level course. FOS.
Sorry, it's 13.
I thought about that too.
Yeah, I mean,
13.
We'll have to. We got corrections and
Sure.
police at the 2,000.
Drop the course number.
well, I'm like her. I think there's going to be a lot of institutions in here that you're going to go back and they're going to say you're cutting what? Because I think there's going to be some internal battles when people get back to their institutions and they
On both
say,
sides, yeah.
no, wait a minute. Now you're taking that away from. For me, it's all in social science, but you're taking it away from somebody, and that's how they're going to look at it. You're going to have the curriculum committee's going to have to sit down, which I sat on, and make some serious changes.
I think the underlying question goes back to what Dr. Gibson pointed out, is that gap. And that's what we should address is what's the gap for our students, and juvenile justice is the gap. It's glaring is the term was used.
I would just disagree with that. I mean, I've never heard a faculty member say, my students don't know anything about juvenile justice, notwithstanding, I mean,
Not that they're
we
not
have a
too long.
3,000 level course on juvenile justice.
I
We
didn't-
don't need more.
I didn't hear a gap.
So,
I didn't hear a gap saying there was a
That's why I
gap.
voted against it, because I don't, there's
Well,
no, there's
what
no
I'm
gap.
saying is-
I mean, I would argue that if we're talking, if that's the criteria by which we're adding stuff here, we have a gap in theory. That's where we have a gap.
They don't
Students
know.
that come into a third year core or third year at university don't know anything about theory. That's a gap.
Yeah, theory and ethics, and again, I go back to, I've been a police officer since 1988, and I have in my positions that I've had, I've dealt with juveniles, and I think I've dealt with them very, very successfully. But dealing with juveniles and dealing with juvenile probation officers, they will tell you it is constantly changing. And to me, my concern would be from the student standpoint is, are we putting students out there and saying, well, you took a juvenile justice course 3 years ago, now you're prepared to be a juvenile probation officer, and they're going to walk into that office and they're going to fail, and they're going to fail our community and our state and our nation, I think, because they're not going to be prepared because that system has changed tremendously since they took that course.
But just like becoming a police officer, there's a training period and it's not TCOM, but it's
The agency-specific training. And that's one of the major changes that came through when Texas Youth Commission came under the gun of the legislature, because my facility was at dead center, zero of that. So as the changes went through, and now it is TJJD, the specifics you need to know to be a probation officer, parole officer, juvenile correctional counselor, those specific training happens before you get sent on your caseload. But having the general background knowledge, the general familiarity allows you to adapt to that training a lot quicker. I'm in favor of the juvenile class, obviously. And I think it does double duty because it does have a theory component to it. So it shores up two gaps that we've identified. And the ethics gap, that can be covered in the core curriculum. There is an ethics class already in existence. It's just not ours, but an ethics class is there. So we can cover that. I think this is a good thing, and I think we've got room to cover. I know we're going to have battles when we get back home, but it's a lot easier to say, well, you know what? This is the field of study. There's not too much discussion on these. That would make my battle back home with the curriculum committee.
Well, except it's going to go out for popular,
Well, yeah, we do have a little discussion. We have that 30-day.
Yeah, 30-day comment.
I want to ask a question. So, does it mean we are also increasing the hours of the degree?
No.
No, we can't.
We are altering them.
Right.
We
So,
cannot do that.
Okay, but you've added, we've added a
You have to
sixth
change
course.
something else.
It's
So yes.
eliminating electives.
So we have to
Yes, so
eliminate
what are we
the
going to do?
Yeah.
Right, since we're voting on adding that,
Both
then now,
sides have to
what
change
are we going to
Yeah.
eliminate to make sure it stays at 60? Because I thought the state.
Yeah, my point was, these are the 6 courses.
So
That's
now you have
it.
to eliminate whatever you had in that place.
Okay.
That's it. And for many schools, and Wharton is a relatively small school. It means that we won't be teaching those other courses because you're absolutely right, they'll go by the wayside.
So not having it in the field of study, you got to dictate exactly which
Yeah,
course you
you
wanted?
have to take these courses as opposed to, we've touched on Wickham, and we get lots of officers. And I guess one of the reasons I felt like a criminal procedure, legal aspects class for somebody who's going to work at 21 as an officer is far more useful than juvenile justice.
Yes, but they're going to go to the academy anyway and get trained.
You're right, in defensive tactics.
Right, yeah, I love
and
No,
go to
there'll be some
range
common law
and-
there. Or you can correct me if I'm wrong.
There should be some kind
It's supposed to be in the TCOL curriculum.
Yeah.
How well
It's
it's
there.
taught.
Yeah, how well it's.
Well, the biggest
That's between
problem is,
TCOL
yes,
and the
it's there,
academies.
but the focus is not like you would have in a classroom. I mean, you go to the academy, you're gonna listen to them, but your whole goal is to
Memorize
Pass that
that stuff and
get
pass
out
the
there,
test.
pass that test, get out there and fight crime and or evil wherever it may exist.
But that's similar to what we were saying before, the class that you taught as the intro to crim, it just depends on who's teaching it,
It sure
what
does.
book they want to use.
There's
what
always
articles-
diversity in what you get, yeah.
That pertains to us as well. It's just a matter of who's teaching that class and what they want to emphasize. So this lower level juvenile justice, I would like to see the learning outcomes from the community college to see if it truly transfers to the 4-year. Maybe those student learning outcomes are low. Maybe they're not the higher critical thinking skills that I would prefer a student to have for that juvenile justice class as they exit to, let's say, become the juvenile probation officer.
And we don't have learning outcomes for juvenile justice. It was not one of the 5 that was done by the committee that I sat on, and every school gets to write their own.
Does that mean that we need to then create it if this is going to happen?
Pardon?
Oh, so if this is going to happen, then we would actually have to
A committee
create.
would have to be formed to write the student learning objectives, as I understand it, for the juvenile justice course. If it's going to be, I assume they want the FOS courses to have state-generated learning objectives.
It's not absolutely necessary, but it's an ideal, if they can all have been through the learning objective process.
But I looked at what you were sort of talking about a few moments ago. I mean, it takes out one of our. It's an elective that's offered almost every semester, but it certainly is an elective. It's a different category of course than some of the other ones are. There are electives that we teach more frequently than that one.
If I could just jump in to go back for a minute to answer Patrick's question about what course, if we add a 6th course, does that mean we're taking one out? That's one way to look at it, but one way around that is to think that if students are advised well, then they can use one of the 6 courses or more in the field of study to count towards the core curriculum requirement. And that leaves them with that same extra course that they can take as an elective or that your program can choose for them as required for your associate's degree. And it does appear that a number of these courses, right, would count towards the core curriculum.
Depends on the institution.
It depends on the
Depends.
institution. We don't have any criminal justice in the course.
We have no
Not for
criminal
ours.
justice in the
No,
course.
really?
No, we don't
We have
either.
sociology, we have psych, but
Wow.
criminal justice
Is
as a
where-
program
we're not-
opted
Wow.
not to be
We're
part of
also
the
not
core.
part of the core
Yeah.
for ours,
Oh.
which
Yeah.
I think maybe.
We do
So
intro.
we would have to go through that
Ours
extra
is
step
intro
if
too.
that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, we don't have
Well,
that.
then that does raise the stakes, doesn't it?
Yes.
It
Right.
does. Yes.
That's like for me, what it's gonna take away, I'm gonna have to replace
I mean, they
juvenile
are-
justice. I'm got to take a course away
Yes,
and
we
put
will
juvenile
have to.
justice in there.
Yeah.
Yes. and
I
that's what-
lose my option of teaching another criminal justice.
Well, we all did when we went to the SLOs. That's when I mean, not the SLOs, but the FOS. We lost a lot of options in offering classes.
Well, yeah,
And
but I had that one that I could
now,
I
but
could pick,
mean,
and
Yeah,
it'll be
one.
juvenile
we had
justice.
a lot more than just one
And now-
way back when, and then when they locked in the 42-hour core, and there's only 18 left. Kind of like, ouch.
Yeah.
I know, yeah, I lost 1307 and 2323, and
Is it possible to add to the field of study a CRIJ elective without naming a specific course?
That's
That
what I
was
think
what was
what
done in the
Rob
last one.
asking.
I don't think so. I don't think that's the way we do field of
Because
study.
then you have all these
That was
problems,
okay in
criminal
2003,
law.
but now I think we need to
Right.
nail it
We have to
down.
lock it
That's a
in.
nightmare.
That's why
It's a
keeping
great
the
idea.
Yeah, I think that that's
Could
sort
you,
of.
could you do it either or?
Well, it's implied by the number of semester credit hours in the degree program. You take the amount of required courses, the amount of semester credit hours across the degree, subtract them, and those are your electives. You know. To specify there must be 3 hours of electives seems kind of redundant. How many of the colleges, for those of you who represent 2-year institutions, how many of you would have any of the 6 proposed courses count towards your core curriculum? How many would?
What was the question?
Oh, the 2 years or?
For the, just speaking to the 2-year college representatives, how many of you have a core curriculum that would allow one or more of these 6 proposed courses to count towards your core? For how many wouldn't have any of these courses in your core? So you would have to take one course away if we added this, but the rest of you could, if you use one of these courses towards the core curriculum requirement, if the student was smart enough and knew to do that, then you would still have that extra course.
Oh, you mean, do we have the option of adding anything to the core, a CJ class to the core? The answer's no.
So what do you have in social behavioral science?
Psych, Soc, and my
This is a
one
good reason
CJ
to ask.
1307 course, which you are proposing to virtually eliminate.
Oh, so none of the courses that are on our field of study list
No.
count towards your core?
No, because they can't meet the requirements for a true social behavioral science course if you read the requirements for the core. Under social, quantitative reasoning is the key.
Yeah.
What kind of quantitative reasoning do you do in 1301 or 1310 or
It's in our core.
1306? You're how you got by the quantitative
Some
reasoning?
committee.
Smart choice.
All of the criminal justice field of study courses are in our core.
And
We said if it's field of study, we put it in the core.
I was putting it about without our approval. We only have 2, that's intro and 1307 in the core as elective. But that was the district, that was the CJ curriculum committee approval. So what we'll probably be doing, that's why I was asking, we'll probably be taking away 1307 as one of those electives. If we add the juvenile, just to keep it at 60 hours. That's what we're probably gonna have to, I will have to take that back to my committee.
Just an observation, right? So I think going by the criterion of a gap of knowledge, I don't personally think there is. Others may see it differently. That's fair. So we think about learning for the student. I suspect, and I don't know what my colleagues would do at other 4-year institutions, but I suspect what would happen is we have a 3,000 level juvenile justice course right now. If this came in, we would either drop that down or we would use the 2-year experience as a transfer in something like that.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question would be, right now that 3,000 level course is taught with current research, the most up-to-date sort of knowledge and methods that are out there in the field. That's going to default back to a textbook.
Yeah, it has to, because we drop it down, so we
Right.
can't have the writing requirements as much.
So
we can't-
if we're concerned about the experience and knowledge of the juvenile justice system, I'm not sure they're going to get a better experience having it in the field of study. I think people that are interested in juvenile justice would take that elective and get that more developed, advanced knowledge. And everyone else would get it piecemeal, sort of through the intro and the other courses that are already in the field of study. That's just my sense of it.
Could there be a system, a tier system, and I think you mentioned it in theory,
Yeah.
where you would have the fundamentals of juvenile justice, which would
certainly
be at a
could.
2-year level, and then yours would be the applications or the,
We'd have to
something
create,
Yeah.
we'd have to create a course.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'd
if
have
we
to
only
create a
have
new
one,
course.
you'd have to create a new course, so then you're dealing with caps and you're dealing with faculty resources, which in some universities are not gonna have.
I don't know whether universities would support, that would be a department by department decision, whether they wanted to have, in effect, 2 courses in juvenile justice, right?
Right.
One in the FOS and then an advanced one at a 3,000 or 4,000 level.
Can I ask over here, because I heard you, Wendy, say would have to lower the writing component.
Correct.
My students do a lot of writing. I can only speak for me.
It's
They do
a,
APA papers, they do research papers, they do U.S. Supreme Court case briefs. They do some pretty challenging writing.
but
And I think there's always been a little bit of a disconnect, and I realize we're only freshman, sophomore level, but
it's not about, and it's not a community college. Keep in mind that we'll have students in there that are not coming from you that we got straight in, that will just be coming out of high school.
but give them writing
And we'll also have, we also have requirements at the university level that if they're over this level, these are the things that we can add to the course, and under this level, we cannot, so.
But you have roadblocks within your university that
Sometimes.
says you can't do.
And sometimes, again, we're trying to market to the whole group, so, and in Corpus, we actually do have quite a few native students, we get a lot of native students, so, so then we have to also think about them, so if they're in the freshman, sophomore classes, they could literally be first semester students, and they're not ready at that level. Now, if they're in the junior, senior levels, we know they've had the first block, so we have to think about both groups coming through. I mean, I'm not suggesting that the community colleges can't prepare a
Oh, I
student.
know you're not. I'm just saying if you had to teach it at a lower level, you could put more writing in it. That's the
Yeah,
point
we're
I
not
was
allowed,
trying to
yeah,
make.
because we put them, the problem with the lower level is that the reason we have those requirements is because some of those courses are gonna be up to 100 students, 150, we can't put, we just can't have advanced work with
That many students.
100
It's
students,
a
yeah,
different feel
or
of the
65 or
classroom.
70.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's really how that's why.
Gotcha.
Let me make this just suggestion, and we can think on it tonight. I guess we can, could we re-vote if we wanted to,
I'd like to see a
reconsider once we?
Yes, you'd have to make
Before
a
we-
motion to undo the vote that you
Yeah.
just made to.
But what I'd like you to
Second still under
consider,
discussion.
for everybody to consider, is the impact it has on your institutions, your programs, senior, junior institutions, and whether we want to, because now we're hearing some things we didn't hear before we voted, so whether we want to reconsider it tomorrow and think on it tonight and understand how it may impact us. Yes, Ken?
I thought criminology people were not supposed to rush to judgment.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about this in our classes.
That's
Yeah.
theory.
Thousands, it's only the theorists in the group.
Yeah, and that might be that we leave it at 15 instead of 18 hours in the field of study, but what are your thoughts? You want to kind of think about this over a beer tonight or something and
I'll ask a clarifying question. We voted to increase from 15 to 18. We
Right.
have not voted what course.
Yeah, we did.
No, we did, we did,
Yeah.
yeah. We voted
That was
specifically.
That was the inclusion of that vote?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand the impact on some institutions. I also understand the feeling that there is a gap in what, so I understand both sides of the issue. And I've personally, when I've taught the course, students have come from community colleges with that gap, that's my experience, and everybody has their own. So, if we can do that, we can reconvene tomorrow and you know, if ever, I mean, we'll re-vote if we need to, or however we should proceed on the matter.
You can also try to get in touch with your colleagues, administrators, deans, department chairs, teachers who teach juvenile justice at your departments, and try to get their feedback. I know it's awkward to either get them either very early in the morning or very late in the afternoon. It might not be possible, but you can always do that as well tomorrow.
Because it will, you know, it's going to have an impact. So we want to be careful, you know, in terms of what decisions we make, that they're in the best interest of our students and our institutions and higher education in general. So we can reconvene and talk about this again tomorrow before we, I guess, finalize.
Make a motion to revote.
Well, we need to do that tomorrow to.
I think you should do it now.
Yeah, I think we should do it
Make
now.
a
I mean,
motion to
we-
reconsider.
it's fresh on mind. We might
Yeah.
as well.
Is there a motion to re-vote on the motion? Okay, is there a second? Second. So all in favor say aye or raise your hands. So, okay, we'll re-vote tomorrow, reconsider it. And again, we've heard things you know, after we voted that might make us reconsider it. You think it's back in the time, we'll just come back in the morning?
Whatever, you know. I mean, I haven't said this, and I don't know if there's any use to saying it, but this class right here, 2301, community-based correction.
Yeah, that's kind I mean, it would be nice to do, but.
I did it for 15 years with probation, and I'm not gonna lie to you, in hindsight, I don't like it. It's like a tour of duty in Vietnam, I guess you could say. But it was a rewarding feel, I got a lot out of it. And my point is, like I said, 8 years in prison. And for every one person in prison,
They do intro,
in jail, we have 4
sports law, juveniles,
and state of Texas is prison numbers are dropping. Juvenile justice is up for both. We went from like.
At this point,
It's being institutionalized, and those were the jobs.
At this point, I think we've worn ourselves down for the day, and so we'll stand adjourned till 8:30 in the morning.
8:30 tomorrow morning.
And we'll reconvene, and I will see everyone then.
Okay, thank you all very much. Hope you have an okay hotel.
Dinner on PHECB?
Sorry. All right.
We got
I got the circle out of
You get to go home.
See, it's so funny, when this whole thing started, my department chair came to me and said, you know, we need somebody on the committee. Can you really specify what? And he goes,
I know.
position and teacher, so we'd like you. And I was like, all right, you know, I'm associate with my junior promotion here. And he was keen to I know. And then it comes back later, and it's the thing that, you